How you guys doing today? It's Anthony Gangi, and welcome to my leadership training. Guys, I'm excited that you are taking interest in the training, so please tell me how it goes once it's completed. Hopefully you watched the whole thing. It's a little bit lengthy, but I promise you there's going to be a lot of knowledge here. The reason why I decided to develop this training is because I feel that there's a gap now between what the agency expects of you and what your front line expects of you as leader. I don't believe there's a lot of training that's given to people in corrections and how to manage people. I think there's a huge gap. So over the last couple of years, in an effort to keep myself growing, I started reading a lot of leadership books. Now, granted, these leadership books are generalized in context, but having said that, with a little ingenuity, being a little innovative, you're able to find a way to see the knowledge that's here in these books and then apply it to what we do here in corrections. The PowerPoint presentation I'm going to show you today is going to be modeled from 5 Levels of Leadership, John Maxwell's book, and it's proven steps to maximize your potential. This book used to actually be about influence, 5 levels of how to gain influence, but eventually they realized that leadership and influence kind of equates. So let's change it from influence to leadership. Also, you're going to see a little bit of this book in there, 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. And very briefly, I'm going to mention this book, 17 Laws of Teamwork. And then, of course, there is my own book, How to Succeed in Corrections, Lessons Learned While Working in a Prison. And that book is available at blue360media.com. Again, I realized there was a gap, and this is my effort to make sure that there's some training out there that our leaders can utilize, especially because now our leaders are getting younger and younger. Senior people are leaving this profession. They're taking with them their experience, the core values of what makes corrections. And I feel like right now we're kind of in a desperate situation. And I want to be able to try to fill these gaps. So for people who need the knowledge, there's something available. So this is my first attempt at creating a PowerPoint lesson, a leadership video, and I'm hoping that people find use and value in this first attempt, because if it does, I am going to provide more. So granted, guys, if you do watch this video and you do like it, I am going to post it on YouTube as well. Let me know, because this will keep me motivated to keep creating more, because it's a lot of work. You got to do your research, and you got to formulate a PowerPoint based on where you feel are the most important concepts that you want to have covered. So let me go ahead and get us to the PowerPoint. Bear with me. Let me share the screen. There you go. And let me get to the first. And here we go. So the lesson is a journey through the 5 levels of leadership. And again, that's from this book right here. So I definitely would recommend you purchase this book. And basically what we're going to do today is we're going to discuss the 5 levels, how it works, go through each position, and we're going to apply it to this profession specifically. Again, I'm going to pull some scenarios. Again, you guys in your position, you'll know what scenarios work best for you. So you're going to have to figure out how this lesson applies to what you do. I'm just going to borrow from my own experience to show you that you can utilize these lessons in this profession. But if you can learn anything from this lesson, so let's say right now, this is all you have time to watch. The most important lesson you want to take from this today is that leadership is more than just a position. And that's a big thing about what we're going to discuss today as we go through the levels. So let me, as the curtain opens, let me show you some pictures that I was able to pull from my state agency through their social media websites, as well as just Googling. And as you can see, I chose pictures that highlight value, fulfillment. I mean, these are people that are showcasing that they enjoy what they do. They're being appreciated for what they do. And even in the moment, however fleeting, They're happy. And the reason why I want to show you this is because a lot of us believe that this profession of corrections is negative. There's no hope. I'm all miserable. Morale is low. But as a leader, when I see a picture like this or pictures like these, I know that happiness and fulfillment, value, it's all possible. So these are pictures that also keep me motivated in the back of my mind, because this becomes an end game for what I want to reach as a leader for my people. I mean, here, not only they appreciate, you also see people that are active in their communities and truly making a difference. And that goes far beyond the work that they do behind the wall. So why am I in this profession? So, guys, I started this profession over 21 years ago. I wish I could say that what I'm going to tell you now is going to be inspiring, but it's not. In early 2000s, there wasn't much knowledge about what corrections is. There was no way to research it, not like it is today. We have social media platforms like Tier Talk, social media pages like Facebook pages, like groups like Keepers of Chaos by Russ Hamilton, where you get to meet other professionals that work in the career. I just needed a job, needed money, and corrections was able to provide me with these good external incentives, you know, a good job, good salary, good benefits, vacation days, sick time. And being a waiter, I didn't have that. So that definitely pushed me forward into this profession. I didn't develop the value of this profession until I actually worked in the profession. But also I allowed myself to be open to discovering the value. When I finished the academy, for me, that was a challenge. I gave it my all. And I remember leaving the academy saying, I'm committed to making this a career, because I am not going through that again, or going through this for no reason. So I knew corrections was where I was going to be. And that commitment got me right at day one, looking for value, interacting, and just finding a purpose in my effort to serve others. And that really hasn't changed much as I've grown. Whether it's the inmates, whether it's the peers, I try to interact with people and in an effort create some positive value in the exchange. My career has taken me through 5 different prisons, all levels of custody, females, males, treatments. I have made my way from officer to sergeant and from sergeant to administration. I have also found my passion in advocating for this profession, not just to the public, but also for us, because I think we're starting to lose value in what we do. So I also believe that if I expect for the public to understand the value, then we ourselves have to understand it. So the YouTube channel that I've created has almost 1,500 videos, and they go from everything from advocating to the profession, to helping people find value in this profession, to training and tips. I mean, I have great people on the show with me that share their thoughts, their insights, and I know that the videos are used for training all across the country. Becoming a voice has been really a focus of mine recently, but not so much a voice to the public, a voice for us on the inside. That's what matters to me most, even though I've done national appearances on the news. And that's great. I mean, MSNBC, News Nation, Fox, I mean, pretty much every national network. I mean, how many people can say they actually done that? I don't get the thrill of doing national news like the real thrill of speaking at a conference, which I've done many times, you know, whether it's for AJA or a state organization or agency, leadership, training and manipulation, whatever it is. There's just something about being out there, talking to your people and watching them understand the message, and then providing feedback and questions. And you really just know you're gaining some momentum. And, you know, the question is going to be is what happens next? Does the momentum remain, or does it get lost when they go back into the facility? And then obviously publishing articles as well through Corrections One and, you know, AJA, the different organizations. But why am I in this profession now? As I said, because I've developed value. I know there's value behind the work. I believe it's purposeful work. And I believe that it's important. More than anything else, the work that we do is essential. And when someone asks me, why have you chosen to move up? I wish I could also inspire you there, but I can't. I would lie to you if I created a story that was inspirational. Basically, I moved up because there were certain people I didn't want to be my boss. But then as my responsibilities increased and I made an intentional effort to interact with the people that are in my charge, I said, hey, I can make a big difference here. So again, I developed tremendous value by allowing myself to be open to learning and growing, and then really seeing the impact that you could create when you move up. And trust me, you really don't know the impact you can create until you move up. And what I mean by that is there are limitations. So most of the time, it's really about your effort and not so much the outcome. So I want you guys to be mindful of that. That's one thing in corrections that we have to shift. It seems like we're judged for outcome, and the effort doesn't get appreciated. But most of the time, the outcome is not in our control, but our effort is. And I think that's something that we have to learn to shift. It's extremely important, because then the people that provide the effort, if they're being judged by outcomes that they cannot produce or don't have the control to produce, they wind up becoming disenfranchised, and they stop committing to the effort. So we're on the same page. I'll have you guys think about this for a second, but define leadership using one word. So I'll give you guys a second to think about that one word. For me, and from the lessons from John Maxwell and the books he writes, the one word he utilizes is influence. Leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. He defines leadership as the ability to influence others in a direction that they would want to go, in a direction that helps them meet their greatest potential. He quotes Ralph Waldo Emerson in his book, Becoming a Person of Influence, how to positively impact the lives of others. And he says, Ralph Waldo Emerson said, every man is a hero and an oracle to somebody. And to that person, whatever he says has an enhanced value. I am sure there have been people that you have worked with, good leaders, good supervisors, maybe in the real world, a parent, a teacher, a close friend, that you allow them to have influence on you. It's a level of vulnerability that's based on trust. I trust that you always have my better interest, and therefore I allow you to influence me into a direction that I may need to head. And the reason why he uses the word influence is because as a leader, or as a person who has authority over others, you got to make sure you never cross into manipulation. Influence is always for the betterment of others. Manipulation is usually a self-serving interest that only betters you. So using the word influence creates a better understanding of what's expected from a leader, which basically I'm here to help you reach your greatest potential. And again, for the people that I have allowed to have influence on me, when they speak to me, it does have an enhanced value in how I perceive it, how it's interpreted, and the lasting impact. There's a book by Brene Brown called Dare to Lead. Brave work, tough conversations, whole hearts. And she says, I define a leader as anyone who takes responsibility for finding the potential in people and processes, and who has the courage to develop that potential. I wish I could go back and say that when I became a supervisor because I wanted to take responsibility of the people that will work for me. Responsibility for the overall successes and failures. But I didn't even know enough back then to even think that was an option. But as I moved up in this profession, I've been in this high-level leadership now in administration since 2015. But if you want to go back as a sergeant, since 2011, which gives me 12 years of supervisory experience as of the date of recording this in 2023. I can look back and honestly say that as a leader, you are 100% responsible for the people in your charge in every way possible. You're responsible to the higher ups for their successes and failures, but you're responsible to the team and making sure that you are there for them, that they know you care, that you translate a message of specific appreciation to the individuals in your charge. I mean, to be honest, guys, that is the most important thing that you can do as a supervisor, especially in corrections, because appreciation isn't translated anymore. So staff, I mean, they should still feel value for the work, because you don't need external appreciation to know that the work is important, but it does keep them motivated. And it's a very important part of being a leader, is letting your staff know that not only do you care for them, but you appreciate the work that they do, however routine. It's crazy how we don't appreciate the routine work until it's not being done. So your job as a leader is not also just to appreciate the work that they do, value them, but to also make sure that in this profession, they've reached their greatest potential. That is probably one of your main responsibilities as a leader, because you are directing them somewhere. And that somewhere has to serve their better interest. So as a leader, not only am I responsible for you, but I want to make sure that I put you on a path so you can be successful. Because eventually, you got to pass down the legacy. You got to pass the torch. So the 5 levels of leadership, let me just explain what this is about so we understand the journey that we're on. And again, it comes from the book, 5 Levels of Leadership from John Maxwell. So as you can see, there's 5 levels. The initial level is position. It's the first level. It's not the end game. I gained the position. Now I'm done. No, you get the position. It just begins. This is where it starts, because the position gives you the ability to lead now. Because through the position, you have a chance to be effective, have a chance to create influence, because that's what the end game is here. You want to gain greater influence. So the position is needed to begin this journey. Now, that doesn't mean that you need a position to become a leader, because you do have emerging leaders all the time, amongst our peers. But once you take a position that's higher, you are now in a position where you have to step up and be that leader. And for each level, he kind of has a word that starts with R to kind of define a little bit about the level. And for position, it's about rights. As a leader, you have certain rights that come with the position, which includes a level of authority over others. And guys, we're going to break this down as we go more specific in each position. But at this level, people follow you because they have to. They have to follow you. Level 2, as you move up, there's a big transition, because now people don't follow you because they have to, because you're building relationships now. They follow you because they want to. And that's great, because as you make the effort to build relationships, people start seeing you outside of your position, and they connect to you, and they want to work for you, because they know that when they work for you, someone cares for them, they respect them, they value them. But we still got to go beyond building relationships, because in the end, it's not about simply building relationships, but what are we doing? We're building relationships to be productive. Productive for the agency, productive for the team, productive for the overall success of what it is we're trying to accomplish. And the R word for that is results. And the influence is gained because people follow you because of what you have done for the organization. This is the phase where you create momentum and credibility, and we'll explain that a little bit later on. And then once you start to show that you're credible, that you're able to accomplish things that the agency expects, then you move up to level 4, people development. And that's about reproduction. Basically, people follow you now because what you have done for them. They see your success and they want to be mentored by you. They know that you're productive and they want to learn from you. So at this level, you're training them to be a leader like you. And that's time and that's investment. And on the final step, level 5, this is the highest. Not everybody reaches that level, but it's pinnacle. It's about respect. And people follow you because of who you are and what you have and what you represent. An example of this for me is I do the Tier Talk venue. That has gotten millions of views at this time. And I could walk into a room and not know people, but they know me. And I kind of could just walk in and have influence because of my work in the past and how people are able to receive my message. So again, level 1 is a position where it's kind of given to you. Level 5, and even though you earned it, when you walk, it's still kind of given to you at that point. 2, 3, and 4, what you constantly have to earn. You constantly have to go back and earn that influence to lead. And as you notice, as you go up the levels, your influence increases. That's why the name of this book originally was Levels of Influence. So let me tell you how the levels work real quick so we understand how to kind of take the message that I'm going to try to teach here. When you can move up a level, but you never leave the previous one behind. So I just want you to know that these levels build on each other. So for example, when I gain a position and I go to now build on relationships, I don't leave the position behind. When I go from relationships to productivity, I don't forget about the relationships in an effort to be producing, in an effort to be productive. I still have to maintain those relationships and so forth and so on. So these levels build on each other. You're not the same level with every person. So if I got my boy Russ and Joe, Russ may see me as a level 3. Joe, I just met Joe. I could be a level 1. So you have to be wary that you have to know how the other person perceives you so you can understand what level of influence you are with that person. And that really does matter, because you have the position doesn't mean everybody is going to accept you as their leader. Now, mind you, when we're talking about position, and we'll get to that, you want people that follow you because they want to. And that has to be earned constantly. And that's not always earned at the same pace for everyone. The higher you go, the easier it is to lead. It is. It does take more time and commitment, but it becomes easier to lead because the higher you go, you create more influence. The higher you go, the more time and commitment is required to win a level. 100%. I mean, yes, you get the position. That's pretty quick. But now I got to build relationships with people. That's time consuming. And then I got to show them I'm productive. That's even going to be more time consuming. And then now at that level 4, when I'm trying to create them into better leaders, that takes a tremendous amount of time and investment. I mean, so yeah, it may feel that it's simple because you're gaining more influence and things are kind of smooth, but it still requires more time and commitment because now you're looking to maintain it. You cannot climb the levels alone, and that's kind of easy to understand. Everything you need to move up is built on influence and your ability to influence others to help you reach that next level. Moving up levels occurs slowly, but going down can happen quickly. Guys, when it comes to moving up levels, I kind of utilize the word trust because trust allows you to move up the levels, and trust is hard to earn. But man, when you violate it, you will fall back quick. So you have to realize the effort to move up is inch by inch. But when you mess up and you fall down, it's pretty much mile by mile. It's quick. The higher you go, the greater the return. I totally agree with that. As you move up the level, you go from position. That's great. But when you build relationships, there's just a great feeling there because you're connecting to your people. You're making an impact. And then you're utilizing that to become productive. That's great because now you're being successful for the agency. You're really kind of fulfilling that leadership position. And then now you start developing leaders. Sorry, that disappeared. Now you start developing leaders, and now you're growing exponentially because now you have leaders developing leaders, which helps grows the agency, helps grows your facility. And then obviously that final level, that pinnacle where man, you could just walk in and you just got that respect because of what you've done. Moving further up always requires further growth. And we're definitely going to be talking about that, because when you move further up, you have to constantly grow yourself. You have to constantly make sure that when you get to this position that you know it's not a destination, it's a journey, and you have to keep on educating yourself, keep on reading books, keep on doing what you can so you can help grow the people that are under your supervision. Not climbing the levels limits you and your people. And we'll see that as we go through. When we talk through the levels, you'll see in the downside of things how if you don't make the effort to move up to the next level, where you're leaving yourself and your people. Again, because you don't want to be the lid. And that's one of the laws that he discusses in the 21 irrefutable laws of leadership, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But it's the law of the lid. If you leave yourself as a 5, your people can't go past 4. So again, you got to be willing to climb the levels of leadership to gain the influence. This way, your people can also climb with you. And when you change positions or organizations, you seldom stay at the same level. And we talked about that. So like I have transferred multiple times. And even though now, since I've been in this position a little bit longer, some people do know me, not everyone does. And I have to find myself every time I switch, even though I am in a higher position, to start from the beginning again, because I have to earn their trust and their permission to lead them, because that's the case, right? Level 2, once you build relationships, you're earning their permission to lead them. So let's go with position real quick. Now, guys, as you move up the levels, you're going to realize that at the bottom level, which is position, there's fewer upsides. There are upsides, but there's fewer, and there's more downsides. But as you move up, upsides increase, downsides decrease. So let's go over a few of the upsides of earning a position to lead. The upside of position. Leadership position is usually given to people because they have leadership potential. Hey, welcome. You're now one of us. You're at the table. Welcome to the leadership team. Now, remember, when it comes to leadership potential, it's not so much about the technical stuff, but rather your ability to manage people. When I interviewed for administration, there were so many areas I had to study for, because now you have to truly understand the operations of a position of the facility, of the prison, especially at the administrative level, because you got to see where all departments meet to kind of balance the house. And I was so nervous because I'm like, they could pull a question from anywhere. They could pull a question from anywhere. So what do I do to let them know I know this job? And before I went in, someone saw that I was nervous, and I explained to them what it is, what my concern was. And they said, hey, Gan, this is about your potential. So if you don't know something, that's a good chance for you to show us your potential, your resourcefulness, and finding out the answer. Because that's what we want in leaders. We want problem solvers, because in working in corrections, it's not a script to follow. Yeah, there's policies and procedures, but man, there are so many situations that require you to be resourceful. So I'm looking for a problem solver when I do an interview. So you just got to show me that you're resourceful enough to solve problems. And the other thing is, when I finally moved up and I made administrative position, my day one, I looked at the 2 people that both had at least 30 years experience each. They were experts in the game, and they were solving problems that I never knew existed. And I found myself again being overwhelmed. And that person came back and said, Gangi, you weren't hired here expecting to know everything. And trust me, I don't want that anyway. I want to teach you. I want to cultivate you. You're not taking into account what we've done in those on-scene hours that have brought us to this level of effectiveness. So don't think you have to reach this high level of unrealistic expectation at day one, because I don't need you to impress me. I need you to shut up and learn. So again, you're being recognized for your potential to grow. And I truly do believe you're being recognized in your effort to lead others. So again, that is quite a compliment for someone to appoint you to a leadership position and then say, hey, not only do I know you could be effective, but I trust you to help the people in your charge be effective. A leadership position means authority is recognized. And it's true. You're given a leadership position, there's certain rights that come with that position, which means, okay, I'm a sergeant, I'm a lieutenant, whatever department you work for. I just may lean on custody, but it does apply to the other departments. But I'm a sergeant, so my officers, they have to follow me at first. Because remember, they're trying to figure you out. So the position should give you enough time to create some momentum, but you can't stay there because eventually that position runs thin. So maybe you'll be a little bit successful at first, borrowing the authority of the position, but eventually people see you and the position doesn't carry that much weight anymore. So again, you got people that have to follow you. That's the right of the position, but that's going to lessen. So you need to do what you can to start working on getting them to want to follow you. So again, a leadership position means that authority is recognized, but that doesn't mean that you have the permission to lead your people. At this point, yes, it's your right, and that's going to give you little success at the beginning, but it wears thin pretty quick. A leadership position is an invitation to grow as a leader. Guys, remember, position is not a destination. It's a journey. So when you go into a position and you've just been granted this supervisory position or this management position, you have to know that this is the beginning. This is where it begins, not where it ends. So what can I do for me, for myself, to help me grow and be better so I can then be more effective as a leader for my people? So you're going into the position humble, knowing that you got lots to learn, but you're going in making an intentional effort to better yourself and not remain stagnant. And that is intentional. Most of the stuff I have done, my reading, my writing, everything, and in my effort to grow, because even writing can be therapeutic, was done on my own time. I didn't relax on the perks of my position. It actually became more challenging because I knew now that more would be needed of me. A lot of people think that when you move up, you can rest easy on your authority. You can't, because you have responsibilities that don't allow for you to rest easy. And believe it or not, when you move up, and you'll realize this soon, it's not always seen on the level below, but your authority never matches your responsibility. So actually, you have this illusion of freedom that when I move up, I'm going to be more free. No, you're going to be tied down with responsibilities. So if you think that when you move up, you're going to be more free with authority, and no, you're not. You're going to be more burdened with the responsibility of the teams that you lead. And then you have a leadership position allows potential leaders to shape and define their leadership. And when you define your leadership, who am I? Who do I want to be in this position? How do I want to effectively help the team reach their greatest potential? What are your values, and do they translate in your behaviors? Those ethical values, those relationship values, those successful values. You may say that you believe one thing, but can I see it in your behavior? Can I see it in front of me? So you need to make sure that when you get that position, you start looking for the values that matter, obviously not just to yourself, but to your team. And then basically, what leadership practices do I want to put in place that promote those values, the values that show your team that you're here to help them, serve them. Now, we mentioned this a little bit, but leadership is action, not a position. It's a journey, not a destination. And this comes from the 5 levels of leadership. This means that when you're in that position, you have to keep moving. This isn't for you to stop and, look around, enjoy the perks. This is to pick up the ball and start moving forward with it. Now, there are some downsides, and there's going to be more downsides because it's the lowest level. And the first one is having a leadership position is often misleading. I agree with that. When I was an officer, I thought my sergeants were gods. I thought they could do anything. I thought they had the authority to do anything. And then I became a sergeant and I realized how limited I really was in my scope of authority. The authority did not match my areas of responsibility. So again, what did I do is I wind up for the things I could not solve. I wind up just being a voice to let my staff know I hear their concern and I will go ahead and translate that concern because that's my job to the next level of leadership. But I want people to know that having a leadership position is often misleading because it promises more than it can give. So just be mindful that you may not know truly what's in the position above until you're really in that position and understand the responsibilities of being a supervisor or a team leader. Leaders who rely on position to lead often devalues people. Guys, I remember certain supervisors who, if I had thought or insight, now we're not talking about emergent situations because I get it. We are in a paramilitary structure. And sometimes when there's emergencies, I don't have time to answer your questions. We got to just get it done and we could debrief later where we can add and become better. But right now I need this done. But that's not all the time. And I wouldn't even say that's most of the time. It's some of the time. And when people come up and they try to express to you what they feel could be a better way to handle things, for example. So if I'm a sergeant, an officer comes up to me and tries to, kind of explain to me why, hey, maybe we could do something this way, whether it's we're doing searches or whatever the tactical expectation is, the officer makes a suggestion. Sometimes you'll have a lot of insecure leaders who take that as a challenge. And because they can't argue against it, they quickly say, oh, I'm the sergeant, we're doing it my way. And they point to their sleeve, or I'm a lieutenant and point to the collar. They quickly remind the person who's trying to provide value of their position by belittling them. And how do they belittle them? Is they put themselves on a pedestal and they put them down here. The moment you push the position is the moment that they feel that they are less than you. And the moment you do that is the moment that you don't deserve a leadership position. You cannot lead from your position and expect people to want to follow you. Again, it's not about the position. It's about you eventually. The position will not hold weight long enough for you to find success by leading through it. Positional leader feeds on politics. I agree with that as well. When you get positional leaders, the vanity of having the position matters to them. They want to protect that position. They don't want to be seen as weak. If they have resources that they could provide to another team to help the team be effective for the house, they don't want to give it up because to them that's a win-loss. We don't got time for that. You got to be able to understand that we're all in this together. And the politics, the divisiveness, who's the best of the best, who's the worst of the worst, none of it matters because at the end of the day, the house is dependent on all of us working together. And all the politics do is divide. And you have to be able to translate that to your people that we don't work with politics. We would do what we can to make sure that the house remains standing. Positional leaders place rights over responsibilities. We kind of discussed that, but basically, as a leader, the responsibility of your people come first, not the rights. Oh, so you just got promoted? You got a new parking spot? That's great. Oh, you got a greater salary? That's great. But how does that help your team? It doesn't. So the team really don't care about that. What the team cares about is, do you care for me? Can I trust you? So you got these perks. Is that the only reason why you got the leadership position? Because it also comes with responsibilities. You don't just get those perks for free. And all you seem to be doing now is advertising your perks. Your authority now to delegate to you seems to be a perk. That should never be a perk. But having said that, what about the responsibilities that you have that basically say, okay, well, if you're willing to do these things, then okay, then maybe you do get your parking spot or whatever it is. But you haven't stepped up and take responsibility for the team. So I could give two shits about your perks. So if you're going into leadership for the perks, you're going to find out that wears thin when responsibilities become overwhelming and you were never ready to step up and take them. Positional leadership is often lonely. Positional leaders isolate themselves, guys. They never leave their position. They never meet the people where they're at. They kind of stay in the Eiffel Tower, and they truly never really understand what's happening because they never make an effort to flatten the hierarchy and talk to the people who are probably solving problems that you don't even know exist from that Eiffel Tower. So you got to be able to up yourself, go towards your people, and build relationships. Leaders who remain positional get branded and stranded, and it's true. If I am going to define myself by my position instead of me defining the position, all people will see is the position. They never get to know me. And once I'm branded as a positional leader, that I really just lead by showcasing my position, which honestly, on the adverse of that, devalues the individual in front of you, the frontline person that may want to have some input or some investment in the work being done. That's very hard to achieve any level of respect. When it comes to being branded and stranded, if your people only see the position because you don't make an effort to be vulnerable and show them who you are so they can connect to you as a person, then the relationship becomes truly superficial. It's, hey, if all you're going to do is give us your position, then all we're going to do is give you what our position tells us to give. And in corrections, you need people to go above and beyond. And I think that's going to be explained later on one of the downsides here on this slide. Turnover is high for positional leaders. That's quick. Nobody wants to work for someone that leads by position. There's no connection. I mean, people don't leave the agency because of the agency. They leave it because of the people that they work for, the direct people that oversee them. So of course you're going to have turnover because I can't relate to people that's positional. I can't connect to you on a human level. I don't know. I just don't want to work for someone that leads by their position and doesn't give me an effort to feel valued or appreciated. You're leading by position, which means the position comes first and the people come second. Positional leaders receive people's least, not their best. And that's kind of what we just talked about. All right, so you get clock watchers. So people that, if I'm leading by position, people come into work, all they do right off the bat is, a minute in, and they're looking to count their day down, the first minute that they're in, or they're just enough employees. Hey, you're a positional leader. You're only giving me just enough, so I'm going to give you just enough. And trust me, with unions, they can get that off. I'm not going to give you above and beyond. I'm going to give you just enough with what's in my job code. But if you're a good leader and I respect you and I truly believe that you care for me, I'll go around the world for you. And then the mentally absent, they're just giving up, they're disenfranchised, and you don't want anybody mentally absent in corrections. So we need to create the best behaviors on level 1 before we start moving to level 2, where we seek that permission to lead, building the relationships with our people. So what are some of the best behaviors that will help us make an effort to cross into level 2, to cross into building relationships? What do we need to do to make sure that transition is as smooth as possible? So right off the bat, quick, stop relying on your position to push people. If you find yourself doing that, you're not a leader. So stop. You don't need your position to push people. You want to pull people. You want people to be inspired. So move away from the position and get them to get to know you and lead through expectation and not so much rules, and lead through expectations. I think that's going to be explained later too. Trade entitlement for movement. This is really rights versus responsibilities. I didn't come here for the perks. I came here because I want to make this team successful. I want to create movement in the right direction. So with that said, it's not about the perks. It's about my responsibility to serve my team. Yes, as a leader, I am serving my team. My team is not serving me. I am in the better position to serve my team in an effort to be more effective because I have access to higher level resources, the ability to talk to higher level leadership. So trade the entitlements, the perks, for the positive momentum you need to create for your team to be successful. And leave your position and move towards your people. We discussed that. Don't hang out in the Eiffel Tower. Get down, flatten the hierarchy, and talk to your people. Find out what's really going on so you can get an understanding of your facility or at a more immediate level, your areas of responsibility that you oversee. Now, there are 3 laws from this book here, the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. Let me just grab it right here, that can relate to this level of leadership, which is the positional level. One is the law of the lid. Leadership's ability determines a person's level of effectiveness. So if I'm not willing to leave my position, if I'm not willing to grow and develop, if I think position is a destination and not a journey, my lack of self-growth and development will limit my people. So this is the lid on myself, and that's the lid on the people I oversee. So when you get there in that position, your intentional effort to grow and develop should increase, not decrease. The law of the process. Leadership develops daily, not in a day. Hey, so you took this course, you're now a leader. No, it doesn't work that way. Hey, you read this one book, you're a leader now. No, it doesn't work that way. I mean, it's really, leadership is trial and error, evaluated experiences, learning, and that's always going to be ongoing. And it does not happen in one day, one moment. It happens over the course of your career. You know, it truly is a daily challenge, and it's something that you have to develop and work on every day. And the law of navigation. Anyone can steer the ship, but it takes a leader to chart the course. I knew when I entered a position that I didn't know everything, and I knew it was okay not to know everything. Because when I was given the position, as I said before, there was someone on the interview that told me, we don't expect you to know everything. And then there was someone later on who also emphasized that. So I'm okay with walking into a room and knowing that if there's something that needs to be done and I'm not the best person for it, I could step back, let them chart the course, and I can help steer the ship. They could provide the direction, and I'll do whatever I can to make sure the ship gets there. I'll provide the resources, whatever I need. But you have to know that all because you have the position doesn't mean you're the best person for everything that position requires. Sometimes you're going to have to realize that there are people that have different areas of giftedness that can complement you. And then sometimes it's okay just to step back, give that person the lead, and then help facilitate their efforts. So again, I may not be the one to chart the course all the time, but I can definitely help with steering the ship. So these are the beliefs that help a leader move up to level 2. Now, again, these are the things that beliefs have to translate in your behaviors. Remember that? Because beliefs are not seen unless you act them out, unless they become visible through your behaviors. Same thing with values. People got it. You value it. I don't see it. So they need to see it. This is what has to be observed, so then people can truly connect to what you say because they see you acting it out. It kind of talks about like a vision statement as well, where if you put up a vision, but you see no efforts or behaviors that kind of lean towards that vision, you don't get the buy-in. The vision is just a bunch of malarkey. But if you see a vision and then you see people moving in that direction, okay, I want to be part of that because I believe it could be successful because I see it in front of me. So this is real quick. Just know that titles are not enough. We know that. People, not the position, are a leader's most valuable asset. And that's why we're moving up to level 2 to build relationships. I think that's a great foundation of knowledge to have. I got the position, but I know that's not where my main success is going to be. My main success is going to be when I deal with my people and show value and appreciation, because they truly are my greatest asset. You need influence, and you need people to know that you specifically appreciate them. And a leader doesn't need to know all the answers. It's true. You go in humble, know when to step down, go in to listen. At the end of the day, you can't grow if you're the one constantly talking. And also, one more thing, when you're having dialogue and you are the supervisor or the main person at the table, then you should speak last, because sometimes what you don't realize is if you speak first, people may not truly tell you what they feel because they don't want to go against what you have said. So let them speak first, let them feel heard, and then you can go ahead and, state your concerns after that's done, after they speak. And a good leader always includes others. And that's pretty much 101. When you walk into a position knowing that you don't know everything, you need the input of others. So having said that, if you're not including other people in any decision-making, then you're never going to get their investment. You're never going to get their buy-in. You're never going to get them to take ownership or accountability, because at the end of the day, the decision was never made with their involvement. It was just basically passed down. My big thing as a leader is I explain them what needs to be done, and they kind of tell me how it has to get done. So I try to work within their means. So there's still parameters of how they're being empowered, but I let them take control of how the job has to be done. So this is the last part, guide to growing through level 1. And basically, thank the people who invited you into leadership. I've done that. They saw potential in you, so you definitely want to go back when you're given the role, be humble, and thank them for the opportunity to lead. Dedicate yourself to leadership growth. Define your leadership. Shift from position to potential. So again, this is your potential to grow. It's not a destination. Focus on the vision, because that's your end game. Have a vision that is clear, actionable, and then let people know that this is where they're headed. But the reason why you want to make it clear and actionable is because you're going to have to reverse engineer that vision to the point where people see where their efforts are going and that it's doable. It makes it reality. Shift from rules to relationships. We talk about that. I don't want to always lean on my position and enforce rules. I want to build relationships. Let's go through expectations. Here's what you expect from me. This is what I should expect from you. And let's go ahead and build relationships. Because if you're constantly leaning on your position, you're constantly enforcing rules. And when people see rules, they see consequences. Okay, we know the rules exist. And every time you play your position, you're quick to remind me of that. But let's talk through expectations. Let's build relationships where it goes beyond just the position. So I agree with that. Even with the inmates, I've utilized that. I lead by expectations and not the rules, because believe it or not, they do blend. I'm not saying that when you lead by expectations, the expectation, the rules are minimized or forgotten. No, it's just a better way of managing the people in your charge. It gives them a reason to meet, as opposed to feeling that they're being pushed. I mean, these are people, especially with the inmates, they don't follow the rules technically. So it's hard to lead by things that they're going to want to break because they don't see the value in it. But when you go through expectations, there is a value. And sometimes they want to meet those expectations. And there's a level of success in that. Same thing with your team. Teach through expectations so they see the value of doing that. There is value within me when I reach those expectations, as opposed to doing it for someone else when it comes to the rules. So it's all about how it's expressed. Initial contact with your team members, that's on leadership. A lot of people are hesitant to talk to people in certain positions, again, especially if you're playing the power card. So your initial contact has to be from you, because you need to break the ice. And that's going to be something that you're going to have to maintain, because, again, you do have a leadership position. And in corrections, some of us believe that we don't break that barrier. And I don't know if that's taught or if that's implied by our perspective. So you got to literally constantly maintain those contacts and flatten the hierarchy once in a while and be approachable, even accessible to some level, as long as it doesn't circumvent chain of command. Don't mention your title or position. We talked about that. You don't lead through your title or position. Learn to say, I don't know. That's pretty much going into the position, being humble and allowing yourself to grow. But it's just a level of vulnerability that once you're able to say, I don't know, it lets kind of the staff that you lead that we're not looking for perfection. We're not looking for unrealistic expectations. So that vulnerability is that I don't know carries a lot of weight when it comes to building relationships, because people will embrace a leader who admits vulnerability. Find a leadership coach. I agree with that. I have leadership mentors as well, because they see you objectively and they can give you honest feedback. Sometimes your front line may not give you honest feedback because it's hard to speak truth to power. But with that said, when you have a leadership coach, they tell you how it is, and then you could truly gauge if you're being effective or not. Okay, that's a game. If we were doing this live, I would try to utilize to break the ice. So let's skip over that. And now we're going to go to level 2. Your permission to lead is granted. So now we're going to start working on relationships with the people. We're going to go over some upsides, some downsides, some beliefs and behaviors, and then also some of the laws that will help you when it comes to maintaining those relationships. Now, mind you, you're not leaving one level behind. You're now building on that level. It becomes the foundation as you move forward to the next level. So level 2 is about permission. Do you have the people's permission to lead them? So again, we're moving up. And here are some of the upsides of having your people's permission to lead them. Wait a second, messed up. Sorry, I gotta fix that. So again, it's about having your people's permission to lead them. So let's move up to level 2. A couple of things that you need to know. Can't lead people until you like people. And that's pretty much reciprocal, because if the people you lead don't like you, they're not going to be willing to follow you. Remember, when you become a leader and you're moving away from position, the shift really is from a position to subordinate relationship to a leader and follower relationship. Like and respect is part of that. So if you don't like people, you are not going to be able to lead them effectively. You have to care for people. You have to show them that you value them, and that will help them relate to you and give them that, okay, I'm willing to follow him. Give them that initiative, that motivation to follow you as a leader. People go along with people they get along with. That's 100% true. And again, this really does come from a foundation of trust. Can I trust you to take me where I need to be in order for me to reach my greatest potential? When it comes to leading people that are go-getters, and I'm not talking about selfish go-getters, I'm talking about people that just chase after challenges, and for the right reasons, they need to know and trust in your ability to lead them to where they can be the most effective. So again, if they don't get along with you and you're not getting along with them, you're not going to create buy-in with them. And if you don't have buy-in, you don't have trust. Subordinates become followers as they give their supervisor permission to lead them. I kind of just said that. That comes with the shift, right? So when I was playing my position, I had subordinates. They had to follow me because, well, comes with my position, right? That's my right. But then when I shifted over to leadership and I'm starting to step in to build relationships with my people, then when I start getting my people's want or my people's permission to lead them, it's a leadership follower relationship that tends to be a lot stronger than the positional subordinate relationship, because one seems to be defined by rules, which is the positional subordinate one. I have to be led by you because you're my boss, and that comes with the position. But the better approach, obviously, is the permission to lead, where I follow you because I want to follow you, because I like you, you like me. Again, and when we say like, we don't mean like in the simplest term. It means you have to like people. You have to want to be around people. And then obviously, if I get along with you, it makes it a lot easier for us to move people forward. So these are some of the upsides of permissional, seeking permission to lead. Leadership permission makes work more enjoyable. Think about that, guys. You're working with someone that you want to be around. He's a leader or she's a leader that you want to be connected to. So here we are. Shoot, we're enjoying work every day because we're being around people and being led by people that we want to be led by. It kind of makes us feel like we have a choice too, to some extent, because I want to be around this person because they're good to be around. I trust them. I like what they're trying to accomplish. They appreciate me. They value me. So of course it makes work more enjoyable. It increases the energy level, increases the morale. And again, that's definitely helping us get to the next level of being productive, because again, you got people that want to come to work. They find enjoyment in what they do. They find value in what they do. And that's all because you as a leader are setting the pace. I mean, I'll be honest with you, even though in corrections, it's hard to say it's enjoyable work, but it is. If you know that there's value and you have purpose and you're in your area where you could excel, it could be very enjoyable. And that energy is great to have that energy in corrections, because it's going to translate to passion and commitment. And that's truly when we become more effective. We're going above and beyond what the job expects. And that truly does help us maintain a safe and secured facility. And outside of that, just when you're surrounded by negative or negativity, this could really matter, because there has to be a balance somewhere. So why not be a leader that people want to follow, so you create an environment that people enjoy what they do? Increase the energy, increase the morale. Leadership permission opens up channels of communication. I love that, because as I said, a lot of people tend to be hesitant when it comes to speaking of leadership, because they may only see the position first. So again, as a leader, when you become intentional, making the efforts to communicate with your people, with your front line. So as a sergeant, as a lieutenant, as a correctional administration, whatever it is, I make an effort, again, not to circumvent, but the open door policy. It shows that I'm approachable. I mean, that's the key. I'm not going to mess with the word accessible right now, because I think that could be a course in itself. But you definitely want to be approachable. And people have to realize that the higher you move up, just by position alone, you may not seem to be approachable. Not because it's you, it's because the position, and you're dealing with people who are used to that paramilitary structure. To some extent, even the civilians may follow that. Not all the time, but to some extent, because they see it all around them. I mean, there are some that just will walk right up to you. I mean, they haven't been really conditioned to the chain of command type thing, but that's not always the case. I have seen people that when they're surrounded in the environment, they pick up on those habits. So what you want to do is you do got to make yourself approachable. So when you walk in the compound, people are wanting to speak to you without feeling that, if they say something, you're going to come at them. So again, it's very intentional to bring truth to power. So as management, as leadership, you have to make the intentional effort to talk with your people, communicate, and try to maintain that as much as you can. Leadership permission focuses on the value of each person, which is going to be different. Each person adds value in a different way. So being a leader, you have to know your people, and you have to know that specific value, that specific appreciation. I mean, you're not walking around giving out platitudes like candy. It's like, oh yeah, you were great. You were great. You were great. You were great. You're great. You're great. No, it's why are they great? Because the people that you're looking to lead got to understand where their importance is and where you're trying to take them. So when you're able to go down and say, hey, Bob, man, the way you handled that code the other day, the way you're able to do A, B, C, D, E, F, G, Oh my God, does that create tremendous value for that person that just heard you? Because that's specific appreciation. You need to practice that as a leader. You need to be aware of what's happening. And then if there's good, bad, whatever it is, you need to be able to approach your people in a specific manner and make sure they know when you communicate with them, it's valuable to them and not some just generic platitude. You know, in some cases, the pars, not everybody's a big fan of it, but it does give a chance for people to communicate with each other as long as you're using the people that actually work with that individual. And then as a leader, that could be a good chance to really find the specifics that relate to that individual and enjoy the dialogue as we either correct the individual if there are concerns or you know, show higher levels of appreciation if they're just getting the job done. So again, when it comes to focusing on the value of each person, that's because you're going to have to provide specific appreciation so they know that they're more than just a number. I used to hate people that would just walk by as leaders and they don't know you. Oh, hey, great job today. Great job today. You don't even know if I was involved in anything today. But then you get someone that's very in tune with what's happening in the facility. They read it and then they go back right after and look for the people that were involved. And then they discuss the issue in an effort to show specific appreciation for the work being done. Leadership permission nurtures trust. We talked about that because it showcases vulnerability. And there is a such thing as vulnerability-based trust. I'm not talking about vulnerability where you mention all your life concerns. I'm talking about vulnerability where you're a leader and you walk around and you know you don't know everything. And you talk to your experts on the floor who know the job. And, you know, they begin to trust you because they feel that they're being heard. They're being valued. There's investment there. And guys, be honest with you, when there's trust, it's okay to pursue conflicts where people don't agree because we know that the foundation's trust. So that's how we grow. If we're not given trust and there's conflict, it becomes personal. So you want that leadership permission to nurture trust because that's how you are going to find out what's happening in your facility in real time. Because let's be honest, as we said before, they're solving problems you don't know exist. So if you don't have the trust, you're never going to know about the concerns or the issues that the facility faces. You know, Simon Sinek talks about the circle of safety. It's a psychological safety where staff know that they could be who they are. They don't have to be perfect, but they can make efforts to try to be perfect. They don't have to reach these highest levels of expectation. And it starts when you as a leader provide an environment for them to be safe to be themselves. And there's a lot of good when it comes to having that psychological safety, because again, I think a lot of people are afraid of failure because they're afraid of the consequences, when really failure could be a great way to learn. But some people are so afraid that failing could lead to consequences that they go to self-survival mode and they wind up hiding their failures, when you as a leader may be able to cultivate that. I mean, really is based on the intent of the individual. I mean, when I look at a concern that happened, I look at the individual I judge the concern. Okay, do we have an individual that was negligent? Like, do I have an integrity issue or do I have a competency issue? I mean, if I have an integrity issue, okay, let's go discipline this person's liability. Let's see what we got to do. But if it's competency, can I train them? I mean, have we made effort to train them? Can we at least try an exhausted effort? And if that doesn't work, I get it. We can cross into disciplinary. But let's just see what happened here, because maybe this could be a constructive issue. I mean, that's the key. And you also got to look at the intent. You got to be careful. If you don't have safety, people are going to be afraid to make decisions because they're always going to fear the consequences. And in corrections, there's consequences in every decision being made. But the worst consequence is when the decision is not made. So I don't want to do things as a leader that's going to stop people from wanting to make decisions. I'm going to have to find a way to balance those decisions out and literally meeting with them afterwards and saying, hey, why'd you make that decision? So I can get an understanding of your perspective and then cultivating them from their perspective. I hate it when you treat somebody that made a decision, bad intent and negligence, whatever it is, and you treat them the same as if they made a decision based on good intent. You know, people that make decisions based on good intent but have a bad outcome should not be treated the same as people that just don't give a shit. Leadership creates the environment for trust and cooperation. I agree with that. We do set the culture, but I will like to add that custody has to receive that culture as well, or the staff, all the departments have to receive that that culture as well. I mean, right now there's a lot of generalized animosity. I hate Tony. He's admin. Tony represents all admin, and I hate admin in general now. You can't do that. We wind up becoming cynical, and there could be good faith efforts being put in by other administrative teams or whatever the case may be. And we're just not trying because we have to be disgruntled because we generalize our animosity instead of dealing with that person specifically. And trust and cooperations are feelings and not instructions. I agree with that. When I crossed into management, guys, especially correctional management, they started giving me areas that I'd never worked in. I had no experience in. And it's like, wow, how do I build trust with people that I've never done their job? Again, you got to showcase you care for them, and then they'll work with you if you don't know their job. Because again, when you work up and you move up to correctional management, you're going to oversee departments that you've never worked in. So again, if I don't have experience in what you do, I definitely empower you. I lean on you, but I'm going to show I care. I'm going to defend for you. What are your needs? What do you need? What resources do you need? How can I speak for you? But the thing is, and this is going to be tough for people to hear, but when I moved into correctional management, I mean, I think I was actually doing it as a sergeant as well, but I just didn't define it. But definitely as correctional management, I just said, hey, trust is automatic. Distrust has to be earned because I can't micromanage every effort. I don't even know what their job is. And right now my responsibility is so wide, I'm not going to know specifics at that job. So unless they burn me, I'm going to give them the trust. They're in that position. I'm going to have to trust them to be effective, and distrust will be earned. So as a leader, I think you have to promote an environment where trust is automatic and distrust is earned. Because again, these are people that have been proven, I guess for my case, let's say department leaders, they have proven to be effective. I'm hoping that's why they're leaders in those departments. So I'm going to give them the trust. There's no reason to second guess that unless they make it so. Employees must feel safe, and we talked about that. I mean, if you got employees that don't feel safe, and every time they make a mistake, they feel that there's going to be a consequence, then they start hiding their mistakes. And now you really have a facility that you think is operating correctly, but there's so much under the rug. I remember when I thought I lost my set of keys, and I'm looking at them for 20 minutes instead of doing the right thing and reporting it right away. I was more worried about the consequences of what's going to happen if the keys were lost, that I would get in trouble. I'm going to get suspended, that I just, was afraid to report it. I went into survival mode, which, by the way, I'm still wrong, because at the end of the day, I shouldn't be motivated to do the right thing based on external consequences. I should do the right thing because it's the right thing. But we as leaders should make it a little bit easier for people to want to do the right thing. It's like, hey, you made a mistake. Fine, let's work together. Let's see what we can do. I'm sure this wasn't intentional. But at the end of the day, if you're not promoting an environment of trust, if you're not promoting psychological safety, staff start covering up their mistakes. And in corrections, you don't want that, because eventually all those mistakes pile up, and you've already jeopardized safety and security in so many ways. So you got to provide an environment where people feel that they can come to you when a mistake is made, and we'll do whatever we can to be constructive in our efforts to fix it. Because if you go quick to the pen, especially to separate yourself and be the hero, the CYA move, you're going to find out that you truly have no understanding of what's really happening in that facility. And eventually it's all going to pile up and pop up all at once. Good leaders give opportunities, education, and discipline only when necessary. I agree. Like, as I walk around, I'm trying to build relationships with my people. I look for opportunities for them that they want. I look for chances to help them grow, and I want them to know that I want to be help them get involved in their growth and development. I make sure that they're aware that I do care for them as I walk around. And as I said, as I just mentioned, I don't want discipline to be my first resort, my first resource, whatever that would be. I don't want discipline being the first thing I go to. I want them to know that I'm willing to work with you. So just be honest with me, because if you have a concern and you make an error, if it's a competency issue, I could work with you. But if you're not telling me and now it becomes an integrity issue, I can't forgive that, because we've lost trust. And I don't care culture or not. You should be doing the right thing regardless, because of the consequences of not doing the right thing. It could get someone hurt or killed. And great leaders make sacrifices for their employees. I agree to that. Doesn't mean your employees have to know the sacrifices you made, but I think that's done all the time. I think people may not realize that, but leaders do make sacrifices. They just may not put it out there, but they do make sacrifices, even if it's, defending their people so much that they destroy their relationships with their higher management. There's so many sacrifices that people may not see behind the door because the sacrifices are in the effort, not in the outcome. And I think if people would learn to appreciate the effort more, they would appreciate the sacrifices that are probably being done that they don't know exist. And you never want to disenfranchise people that provide the effort, because truly they're the ones that we need. They're essential. Now, the downside of permission, there's a few. What's the downside of building relationships with people? Well, there's a few. I don't consider this much of a downside, but it is in his book. The pressure's on you to build positive relationships. I love talking to people. I love communicating with people. I think that's one of my areas of giftedness. So with that said, I don't mind doing that. But again, it's not for everyone. I understand that. But I think that when you become a leader, you got to make an effort to do that. So even if it's not in your style, it should become your style. So I don't see that as a bad thing. But I know for some people that, they may have the position, but they're not very, I think that's the next one. Is it likable here? Let me see something, because I think that's the next. Well, let's get to that, because I'm going to cross into something about likability. And I think I don't want to run that thought if we're going to cover it in just a bit. Permission leadership appears too soft for some people. I don't know if this is really implied, because I've never went through any training, even as whatever training, little training we had as supervisors or as leaders, that you don't want to listen to your people. I've never heard that said to me as a leader. So I don't know where it's implied that we're not supposed to listen to our people and build relationships with the people we supervise. And I've been in the business for 25 years. I have a feeling a lot of this perspective of this hardened position thing, if it's being taught, shame on the people that are teaching it, but a lot of it could be applied by us. What we feel is being said, and that may not be actually what's being taught. So again, I know for some people that feel that it's too soft, but it's not. The paramilitary structure, I get it. It needs to exist. But when you're on the front line and you're dealing with your people every day, you have to have a good working relationship with them. So maybe for the people that are above, far away from the front line or far away from the people that they supervise, okay, maybe it's easy for them to say, well, you're being too soft. Well, yeah, but you got to realize something. I have to go talk to these people. They have to see me as being effective for them, or else I'm not going to get them to want to work with me or for me or whatever it is. So having said that, I think that when you are closer to your people, more immediate, you understand the importance of building relationships. And when you're further away, then you may not see it because you're not dealing with it on an immediate level. So you need to come down a little bit and see it. Because again, that's hard for people to disagree with. Because again, if I'm doing that every day and I have to translate that message, I have to care what they say because I got to see them. I'm the one dealing directly with them. So again, if you believe that's too soft, then I think that you're probably a little further removed from the people that are affected by your leadership, and you need to get down there and talk to them because, how are you leading your people effectively if you're not listening to them? Leading by permission can be frustrating for achievers. You know what? To some extent, maybe, but I find this to be is if you're an achiever and you're selfish in nature, so I'm looking to achieve because I want to be the best of the best. Well, when you're leading people, it's a slower process because you have to lead through their pace. So this isn't a race to get to the finish line because you want everybody to be there together. So if you're a high achiever and all you care about is personal glory, then yeah, it could be frustrating. But again, you're not in it for the right reasons. You have to know for a fact that when you're a leader, it does slow down a little bit because you have to go at the pace of your people. So, and again, it's not about being the best of the best. It's about working together and getting the job done. And eventually, if you're recognized as being the best of the best, that's okay. Hey, thank you. We appreciate it. But that wasn't our reasons for being successful, because then that could lead to expectations that you're never going to always meet. So, and it leads to high level expectations. And I think we get to that when it comes to production. So again, it could be frustrating for high achievers. I mean, even on the people you represent, the team, that you could have high achievers that want to move a bit quicker. But again, if they were true team players, they would break away from that and try to help the people move with them. So that's something that you should address as a leader, because you do have to recognize the pace of your team. Permission leadership can be taken advantage of. Yeah, I think that if I'm looking to be popular, and this is definitely going to cross into the production level, you have to realize something. You're building relationships to be productive for the agency, not for the sake of building relationships. And does that sound harsh? I mean, it could be, but let's be honest. I mean, you got to take the people somewhere. You got to build credibility. And if you're not producing, then what are you doing? Just building relationships for the sake of relationships? I mean, it's more to it than that. So you have to be, and we're going to get to this because it's one of the bullets. This is where care and candor come in. I got to show my people they care. I care, but I also got to be candid with them when they're not stepping up and doing what's expected. And we'll explore that a little bit later. But permission leadership, it could be taken advantage of if you're looking just to solely have the relationship as an end game. I want to be popular. I want to come to work and I want to be everyone's best friend. Yeah, no, that's not going to work, because, at that point here, that could actually wind up holding you back. I mean, you still are their supervisor. You still are their leader. And sometimes you're going to have to, do things that they're not going to be in agreement with, sadly. I mean, it's not a perfect world. I wish it was, but you still listen to them. And then if there's something that you don't agree with, you explain to them why, you give them an understanding, and then you move forward. But permission leadership could be someone that could lead to be taken advantage of if you as a leader believe that's all you're seeking is relationship building. Because you are going to make some not so popular decisions. Permission leadership requires openness to be effective. We talked about that, levels of vulnerability. That does help. So you being a leader, for example, and knowing that, admitting that to your people that you don't know everything can really open up for some good exchange between you and your people. It gives them a chance to provide input, but it gives them a chance to also be vulnerable themselves, and that could build some level of trust. So now we're building people from an honest foundation and not seeing things from this bullshit perspective that they believe they have to showcase. Permission leadership is difficult for people who are not naturally likable. Okay, so this is what I was trying to get at before. If you're not naturally likable, it could be harder for you to build those bonds, but you have to let your people know that, because your behaviors of care, value, I mean, that truly does have to come through behavior, stuff that's visual. And if you're not good at showcasing that, then they need to know that. And they also need to know that you care. You may showcase it in other ways. I mean, maybe things that they may not see. I've had people that really never said two things to me, but I loved them because I knew that they were a voice for me for above. Shit, they were quiet. They kept to themselves. I mean, it wasn't the best leadership style, but they were introverted, but they did defend our needs. They listened to some extent because they had some relatable, like I remember when I was an officer, let's say, and I knew these were some concerns that haven't been fixed. So I can translate those concerns above. But again, I don't like the fact that you're not making the effort to communicate and talk and try to see where you can become more approachable, more likable to some extent, but be wary that if that's not something you can do, you have to find a way to let staff know that you do care and appreciate them. And sometimes that literally is in the effort. But again, if you're not showcasing that, they may shift to total outcome because they're not going to know anything unless something gets produced. So you may have to go back to them and translate your efforts and say, hey, listen, I know I don't say much, but I am looking at you guys and notice that this could be a concern. So I went to management. This is what happened. And I want to let you know. And that can go a long way. I mean, no one's saying you have to fist pound people every day, but they got to know that you do care for them. Permission leadership forces you to deal with the whole person. That's where it becomes time consuming. You can't lead people by permission or lead people effectively in slices, the good and the bad, outside life, profession, all that stuff gets wrapped in. And when you know your people, you kind of know where you can help where you shouldn't get involved. But either way, the more you know your people, and not in specific slices, literally the more you know your person as a whole, the more effective you'll be as their leader, and the more they can relate to you because you know them. You're speaking to them and not just in generalities. Now we got to get a guide going through level 2. So now we're going to start looking to be productive. So we're building relationships in an effort to be productive. So where's our mindset right now? So you got to be sure that you have the right attitude towards people. And we talked about that. You got to like people to lead them. I mean, that's the key. And to some extent, they got to like you. And I don't know at this point if I'm equating like to respect, but there's got to be some level where they feel that you are approachable and that you could be trusting. Usually that comes with levels of consistency too. Like you don't want to be wishy-washy, but you got to have the right attitude towards people. You know, if you don't have the right attitude towards people, they're not going to come to you. I can tell you that right now. And if you're not making the effort to go to them, you're not really leading them effectively. You got to connect with yourself first. You got to know where your vulnerabilities are. You got to kind of also see how you think that they could see you. So you really got to look at yourself objectively. And sometimes you may need help with that. Again, that coach and mentor would be someone that would be good to connect with. But you got to be able to connect with yourself, your vulnerabilities, your strengths, and then really be able to kind of figure yourself out first before you make an effort to connect to others. There's no real way you could connect to others without connecting to yourself. There's another book by John Maxwell called Developing the Leader Within You. 2.0 would be the more recent one. That's more about developing leadership qualities that people can relate to. But if you don't connect with yourself on a very honest and intimate level, the building the relationships with the people and the effort to have an honest relationship with them won't work. It just won't work. If you can't connect with yourself, you're not going to be able to connect with the complexities of others. Understand where you're coming from. This to me is a strong point because you may not realize how you're perceived. You may think you're being effective, but you're not. Whether you say one thing, but your behavior shows something else. So you really truly have to be honest when, you're interacting with your staff, your team, and, you have to make sure that the message that you're trying to get out there translates 100%. If you care, do I see it? Can I see it? And understanding where you're coming from, it literally is an honest perspective. It's an honest look inwards. Because, if you start embracing your leadership position as a perk, then easily influence can become manipulation. And you have to ask yourself, am I really leading this team in an effort to influence them and their greatest potential? Or am I really trying to manipulate them for selfish gain and to look good? So you got to make sure that you have true, honest insight in what you are doing as a leader. Express value for each person on your team. We talked about that, not specific value, specific appreciation. They need to be able to relate to you, and you need to be able to relate to them, but you can't do it with just generalized platitudes. Know them, know what they do, and be specific with that appreciation and that value. Evaluate where you are with your team, and that's kind of going back with what I just said before. Understand where you're coming from. Evaluate where you are with your team is basically talk to them. Ask them for honest feedback. Tell them to be truthful. Put it all out on the table. And by the way, this takes a while because this definitely goes way beyond position. I mean, this is where you really do have a trusting relationship with your people because, again, we're talking about truth to power. But you got to be able to evaluate where you are with your people, with your team, by talking to them and letting them know, hey, so, maybe if it's monthly, whatever, hey, what have we done good so far? What have we, done that we could have done better? Where do I play out in that? What's your thoughts? And remember, guys, when you're asking them these questions, you're truly asking them out of curiosity. And it takes a lot for a leader to admit that level of vulnerability. Most people are insecure in their position. They won't even think about asking their people, these types of questions, but you have to, because that's how you grow and develop yourself as a leader that the team truly wants to follow. Accept the whole person as part of leading. We talked about that. You can't lead people in slices. And, this may be tough to say in corrections, but make fun a goal. What's funny, guys? I know that we work in an environment that could be stressful, tons of anxiety. Yes, there's dangers around every corner, But sometimes when we go back and look at yesterday, we're kind of like, well, that actually was fun. But we never realized it in the moment. That doesn't mean that we don't take it seriously. But, work could be a fun place. I mean, I used to love going to work and breaking with the officers in the OWR, in the ODR, the officer dining room, really, connecting with them, having fun in the process. Even when I was in the academy, I never realized how fun it was in the moment. I realized it afterwards when I'm starting to share stories and laughing about it. It's like, why didn't I enjoy it then? So I think that could be a regret if you go through this whole profession, speed right through it, and just never realize that the profession could be enjoyable. And then when you go back and look at it, you're like, man, why didn't I enjoy it then? So just as a leader, if you're talking to your team, create an environment where people could find enjoyment in the now, so they don't have to look back at it and realize that the best of their days were yesterday, and they never took time to enjoy it. And that really does come with a good, trusting culture. Always give people your undivided attention. I know as leaders, you could be overwhelmed with work, tedious work. But your people are always going to be your priority. Always going to be your priority. If they come in and they have a concern, you got to stop what you're doing, or make an appointment. If you can't see them at that point, hey, Don, you know what? Go see my, whatever it is, make an appointment. I'll see you. Just give me a few minutes. I got to just catch up on this, and then I'll give you my undivided attention. You just have to remember that people are always going to be your priority. And if you are taking the time to speak to them, then you're taking the time to speak to them. You can't be distracted, because they'll sense that, and then that will devalue them, or they'll feel devalued. Become your team encourager in chief. I've always liked that. I love when we're creating momentum and we're being productive, and I see that the team is really moving in a good direction. The different departments are connecting. So I try to encourage that, facilitate that by kind of making sure that everybody knows how important we are to each other in the efforts to meet the needs of the house. So, and by the way, the reason why you want to be that team encourager is because that's the momentum. And we'll get to that because that's in the production side, but you don't want to lose out on the momentum, and being a team encourager keeps the momentum going. And I'll explain more about why that's important in the next section. And practice care and candor. This is going to come up a lot when it comes to being productive, because when I build relationships, I want to show people I care. And part of that is being truthful when they're not being productive. And that tends to be a conflict, because if me and you have a good relationship, sometimes I'm afraid to risk the relationship in an effort to tell you what you're doing wrong. And to be honest with you, that only is going to wind up affecting the team in the long run. And truly, that's going to affect you as being a leader, because if you can't care for your staff and be candid as well, then you really shouldn't be in that leadership position, because now you're not doing what's best for the team. You're being selfish by avoiding conflict. So what you got to do is you got to find a way to balance care and candor to the point where everybody is effective in doing their part. And that's one of the difficult decisions when it comes to being productive, because that's going to be a big part of what you're going to have to do, is to make sure everybody's doing their fair part, their fair share. Because again, if they're not, and you're not addressing it, people are looking at you now, and the team starts to fall apart because they don't trust that you're doing what's best for the team. You're selfishly avoiding conflict and really doing what's best for that individual who's now isolated themselves. So here's some of the behaviors on level 2 that's going to help you get to level 3. And these are just to be quick. Connect with yourself before trying to connect with others. We talked about that. Develop a people-oriented leadership lifestyle or leadership style. We talked about that. People do come first. People should be your priority as a leader. 100% make time for your people. Practice the golden rule, treat others how you want to be treated. It's again, for people that lead by the position, imagine if someone did that to you. It doesn't feel good when it's reciprocated. So practice the golden rule. Imagine yourself in their shoes, and how would you want your leader to be? Become the chief encourager of your team. We talked that, and we'll talk about that a little bit more later when it comes to momentum. And strike a balance between care and candor, and we kind of briefly broke that down. So now there's some laws that relate to this level of permissional leadership. First law is the law of influence. The true measure of leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. I mean, this is really where you start creating influence. relationship level. This is the introduction to creating influence. At this point, it only increases from there. So know that the law of influence, when it comes to leadership is about influence, about directing people to where they can meet their greatest potential. It's not self-serving. The law of addition, leaders add value by serving others. I mean, that's the key. As a leader, my job is to serve others. It's to serve the people of my team. I have to add value to them, because when I add value to them, then they're able to add value to others. The law of solid ground, trust is the foundation of leadership. I think we talked about that too. It is trust. You want to build relationships, you got to have a level of vulnerability-based trust. People got to trust in you, trust in your efforts. If I don't trust you, I can't have you lead me. And to be honest with you, if you're not trusting your people, you're not developing them leaders anyway. You're micromanaging the hell out of them. So again, you need trust. And as I said, trust should be automatic. Distrust should be earned. But trust is truly the foundation that has to be established in order for us to have cooperation and just good, solid team efforts. Law of magnetism, who you are is who you attract. That's true. If I want good professionals on my team, I myself have to be a good professional. If I'm kind of putting my feet up, lax, complacent, I'm not going to get people that are willing to push the extra mile. I'm going to get people that don't want to do it because they figure, hey, I'll work with Gangi because that's the easy route. So I start attracting people who want the easy road. But if I'm moving forward and eventually, as you see later on, building relationships and we're becoming productive, then I start getting people who know that if I go on Gangi's team, he's going to work us. But that's good, because also in the process, there's a lot to learn, and I'm looking to move up. I'm looking to create an impact. The law of connection, leaders touch a heart before they ask for a hand. Guys, I have to show the people I care for them and I appreciate them before I'm able to ask them to do anything for me. Because that, to me, is where you get that permission to lead. Because at that point, if I'm not showing you I care or I appreciate you, then I'm just, in my mind, it becomes selfish in what I'm asking you. Show them you care, show them you're there for them, and then they'll be there for you when you need them. The law of buy-in, people buy into the leader, then the vision. I agree with that. Obviously, the people work for you, technically, not for the agency to some extent. Most of the time when people leave, they leave because they don't get along with their immediate supervisor. So when there's a vision, your job as their direct supervisor is to make that vision a reality, make it doable, translate it to where people are motivated and inspired. And if they see that you believe in it, then they'll believe in it. And if they see that your behaviors are leaning towards that and they see it because it's actionable, then they'll do whatever they can to meet the needs of that vision because they know it's realistic. I hate when I have people that are in leadership positions that have given up, because then they get mad when nobody's giving them enough effort. Well, it starts with you first. You're not giving effort. How can you expect your people to give effort when you're coming in with no hope and everybody's a failure? It starts with you. Even if you're facing impossible situations, sometimes you have to have an understanding that, you know what, even if I can't fix this, there's got to be something that's going to get better. You got to shift your attitude, your behaviors. You got to look for something positive to keep your people motivated, because that is your job as a leader. That's one of the impossible things that we have to manage and maintain every day. And the moment you give up and then you get mad because your people aren't being effective and they don't buy in, well, look at yourself first, because you've given up. And all they're doing is just following their leader. So let's start talking about the beliefs we need to enter level 3, which is being productive. First thing is, we know that relationships alone are not enough. We're looking about being productive now. So we have to make sure that the relationships that we have mature into a level of productivity for the agency, for the facility. Building relationships requires twofold growth. I agree with that. I think you as a leader grow, but also you as a front line grow. When you tend to build relationships, you tend to develop relationships. It is growth because it's investment of time. You're getting to know your people. Your people are getting to know you. So it is a twofold relationship that both parties have to be opened up to. And achieving the vision as a team is worth risking the relationship. And that's true. Now, mind you, when I say risk, you've already earned the risk become more strategic as you move up a level because it's the next step. It's not like you're jumping from 1 to 3. I got the position. Now I want to be productive. No, you're crossing through the relationship side. You're giving yourself safety net. So it's time for you to move up to that next level. And 100%, it's time to make an effort to be productive because you're building the relationships to be productive. So you do need to eventually make the risk and say, okay, guys, this is our next step. And we'll talk about in the next section what those risks are when you tend to move up into the production level, because there are risks that you have to take, but you have to take them. You cannot stay here at the relationship level because then at that point, you're not being productive for the agency. And to be honest with you, you're not being productive for the team because there are going to be people on the team like, where's this guy taking us? But let's get to that. That's the next level. So the next level, the next level, production. It's about results. This is when you produce and you build credibility. Now, from John C. Maxwell in the 5 Levels of Leadership book, he says production qualifies and separates true leaders from people who merely occupy leadership positions. You got to be productive to be a leader. Yes, I got the relationship. That's great, but it's not a popularity contest. What are you producing? Because that's why you're here. It's still a job ultimately. So yes, you're a great leader and you know your people, but what are we doing to be effective? I just want to make sure we're all on the same page. And again, your team wants you to take them somewhere. So if you're not producing, your team is also going to be affected, not just the agency. And again, now we're at level 3. We're in the middle. This is based on results. And this is when people follow you because what you have done for the organization. So you're starting to build credibility. So let's talk about the upside of production. Leadership production gives credibility to the leader. This goes beyond talk. Again, going through my experience, let's talk about I'm a supervisor recently assigned to a search team. And right now, people are questioning if the search team's even needed. There's a lot of resistance, a lot of obstacles, especially from higher up. Maybe the front line knows it's needed, but the higher up is questioning it. Maybe they believe it's a smaller facility. It's not as chaotic. But either way, you're starting this team, and you've talked the need of it, but you still have to produce to give credibility. So to stay in the same scenario, I got to be able to produce to get buy-in first from the people that are providing me the resources, but also from the team that I've chosen, because they also want to be productive. So as a leader, when I start becoming productive and I start producing, it gives me credibility, which helps eliminate the obstacles, which most of the time are just naysayers and people that want to be resistant. So I need the small wins. I need the victories. Let's see. Leadership production models and sets the standard for others visually. So the best way to learn something truly is by watching it happen. Outside of knowing that now this makes it realistic and it can be achieved, the best way to learn it is to see it happening. And when it comes to production models, being able to see someone be successful, to be able to see someone produce becomes a model that I may say, hey, this facility is producing, this team is finding contraband. Hey, can you bring that over to our facility? I like to see what they're doing. I would like to talk to them and get an understanding of how they keep their team motivated, how they keep the team finding the contraband. What is it that they're doing that can help us be more effective? By seeing things, you can emulate it. So this is a big thing here, because when you see it happening, the vision starts to become a reality. What you've been saying is now gone beyond talk. It's becoming a reality. So you need to have this in front of you. Now, on a side note, we're losing a lot of senior staff. The needed education of watching someone move and maneuver, someone that had experience, We don't get that anymore because obviously we have a lot of newer people in, and a lot of the older people have left who kind of took those core practices with them. But I just want people to know it's extremely important to have people that you can watch do the job. Because again, when you watch people do the job, it truly gives you something to mimic. And it just puts it in reality that it is possible. And right now we're losing a lot of the 101s because we don't have the proper role models still around that can teach people how to maneuver. Stuff that's not taught in the classroom. Stuff that must be taught in real time. Leadership Productions brings clarity and reality to the vision. We kind of touched on this because, guys, if I'm able to produce and we know how, then it's clear. And then it also becomes reality. It's not just a dream. We're getting it done. So having said that, 100% production matters because production lets people know yes, it could be done, but also if we're doing it, we can provide clear direction in how to get things done and how to be successful. Leadership production solves a multitude of problems. And I want to put both these bullets together because leadership production creates momentum. The reason why leadership production solves a multitude of problems is because it creates momentum. A lot of leaders look to solve problems. What you should be doing is looking to create momentum because momentum will solve problems. You got to look to keep on fueling the momentum. So again, if your team is successful on searches, all you got to do is kind of step back and keep feeding them the fuel to keep that momentum going in the right direction. Production also increases morale, which also helps with momentum. I mean, it's all connected. But I know you have a lot of leaders that look to problem solve and they avoid the biggest thing. It's feed the momentum. And the problems will solve themselves. If you got a team right now that's solving problems and they're growing together, they're becoming more cohesive and they kind of starting to know how each other maneuvers and what's expected, even though our problems are complex, they're going to know how to handle them because they found out a way to work with each other. I mean, from the administrative level, from correctional management side, I love when all the departments are able to work together as one because our problems at that level are very complex. They're not always just strictly departmental problems. So I need to create some level of momentum with the different departments working together so I can go ahead and, solve those more complex problems. And believe it or not, if you keep feeding that momentum, keep getting it going, these problems tend to figure themselves out. So again, momentum related to production, 100% a friend of ours. Look to create momentum in the right direction, please. And then leadership production is the foundation for team building. We know that, guys, because once you're producing, your team is working together, they're being cohesive, there's trust, there's accountability. I mean, the list goes on, guys. And this helps the team deal with any concerns that come their way because they're honest with each other, they're working together, and technically you're just giving them the resources, learning from them just as much as they're learning from you. And it just seems to make things run smoother and better. There's going to be a slide coming up that's going to run real quick about the 17 indisputable laws of teamwork. I'm not really going to go over each one in detail. I'm just going to quickly tell you what each one is, but that's going to be for another show or another training I'll do on teamwork. But right now we're talking about leading the team. But yes, leadership production is definitely the foundation for team building. Now let's talk about the downside of production, because there is a downside. Being productive can make you think you're a leader when you're not. Sometimes. So let's go back with the search team. Sometimes you find things that are out in the open that really wasn't much of a challenge, and you get the credit for production when technically it was the situation. Sometimes it really wasn't an effort. It just happened to be you got lucky and you found something. So you have to be able to understand when you're being productive, is it really you and the team and that you do got some good momentum going? Or is it really other factors and there's still things that you have to correct in an effort to move forward? Because I've seen teams be productive in spite of bad leadership. And then here you get the bad leadership taking the credit but it's really not you, it's the team. You're actually an obstacle for them, and they would be doing a lot more if it wasn't for you being the obstacle. So granted, they're successful, but you're putting a lid on them and how successful they can be. They're successful within this very limited parameter. Productive leaders feel a heavy weight of responsibility for results. Again, if you're seeking to be the best of the best, then yes, you may find yourself overwhelmed because it's what they call technically maybe some level of performance punishment, where you start doing the job and then people are like, hey, that's the person you got to go to. And then you start becoming overwhelmed, but you also don't say no. All because your team is productive in one area doesn't mean they can automatically become productive in every area. You may just have more buy-in because you found something that everybody's passionate in, and and it's something that it's within the areas of giftedness. So you as a leader got to kind of realize that, yeah, there is a heavy weight of responsibility for results when you're productive. And if you feel that maybe there's going to be something that there's a challenge, you got to bring it up to your higher levels. You don't want to overwhelm your team with false promises to management. Because again, you're looking to be the best and you become that person and you're on that pedestal and it's like, okay, I got you. And then your team is suffering for it. You have to know when you can speak up for your team and say, hey, listen, guys, we're already pushing them to the brink, to the leaders. We're already pushing them to the brink. So I can't push them any further. I'm going to need time with this. Because at the end of the day, yes, I want to show you that I can produce, but this isn't about me being the shining star. It's about my team. And at this point, I don't feel the team is going to be truly effective because they're overwhelmed with tons of work. Production leadership requires making difficult decisions. And guys, again, we talked about that. Difficult decision, truth to power. I mean, you're going to be a voice for your individual. So you're going to have the courage to talk to your supervisors or your head management when you're in disagreement with the strategy that they're trying to implement that just does not equate tactically to what's got to be done at the front line. Or again, we talked about in the effort of relationship building, I got someone that's not doing their part and I have to be truthful with them, and that could risk the relationship. But at the end of the day, I got to worry about the team, and the team is watching me and they know that this officer or this staff member is not doing what they're supposed to be doing, and everybody else is picking up the slack. So now my leadership is in question. If I truly want to do what's best for the team, then I'm going to have to approach this situation, which is going to cause conflict. And the reason why I was avoiding it is selfish. So I got to do what's best for the team. And that is one of the sacrifices that you make as well. Production leadership demands continual attention to level 2. Remember, guys, we talked about this. You don't ever leave a level. You build on the level. And I'm going to tell you something right now. When it comes to being productive, you are constantly going back and forth, building those relationships with those teams to keep them motivated, keep that momentum going. I mean, the moment you stop doing that, you'll start to see the work is going to start lessening. I mean, these are not your slaves. It's not a crock pot. You set it and forget it. You got to keep that momentum going. So you're definitely going back from 3 and 2, 3 and 2, 3 and 2. So production to relationship to production to relationship, production to relationship. And again, that's to keep the momentum going. Best behaviors on level 3. So now we're talking about best behaviors on level 3. We're going to start crossing into what we're going to go into in level 4, which is basically people development, people production. So basically it's the reproduction of leaders. So one of the things right here is understand how your personal giftedness contributes to the vision. So I have qualities that I feel are good qualities. Again, communication. I like to problem solve, but I'm not very organized. So I know where my areas of giftedness are, where I can fit in to help the team be most effective, and I know where they aren't. So you truly got to understand in context of the vision and basically the reversing it back, backwards. Basically, if I want to meet these needs of this vision, where can I play the best role? But also as a leader, where may I be an obstacle? Where am I not going to be the best? And then who do I have on the team that can complement that? But again, your job as a leader is to make sure you put people in areas of their own giftedness, and that includes yourself. And again, when I talk about reverse engineering, you're always doing it within the context of what you're trying to create, that vision. Where are you taking people towards? Cast vision for what's needed to be accomplished. We just talked about that. I mean, these are the victories that you need, but you got to cast a vision that's doable and you actually see the actions in front of you. So again, we go back to the search team, maybe the generalized vision is to provide a safer and secure facility. And our part in that is the searches. And here we are, we're producing, it becomes doable. We're doing our part that relates to the vision. So again, you have the generalized part, management kind of translate that to their team of what's our part in that. They start carrying it out and they start becoming successful and they start realizing that the vision is attainable. And believe it or not, them being able to produce in that area could also help other people stay motivated to produce in their area. So this does become a team effort. It's more than just searches that maintain safe and secure facility. Begin to develop your people into a team. And I'm just going to quickly, in the next slide, just quickly give you a law and then a sentence behind it that explains that law. But that's for you to kind of pick up. We'll do another class on this, but this is the book here, 17 Indisputable Laws of Teamwork. Prioritize the things that yield high return. Guys, as a team leader, also with your team, you got to make sure that you're doing the right things in the right priority. You can't be spread out individually where no one's connected. This is not individualized efforts. It's shared effort, shared valued, shared partnerships. We all have to be on the same page as to what the priority is that has to be accomplished and remain focused on that priority. We really cannot shift because if everybody has a different priority, then there's not one thing that's a priority. And be willing and ready to be a change agent. This is important right now. I don't like the word change, but for sake of argument, we'll use change, but I like the word evolve. But when it comes to change, guys, we are changing. There is pressure from the outside, but we should never change the core values. And as a leader, we have to motivate our people by letting them know that we are moving forward. We are embracing a different way of corrections and correctional management, especially when it comes to managing the inmate population. But I want to make sure that you know that we're not letting go of these things because people aren't afraid of change. They're afraid of letting go what they hold dear. So you have to be mindful to fight for those core values. And then when you're motivating change, or I'd like to say evolution, but when you're motivating change, you're motivating it from a strong foundation of the core values of safety and security. That to me is definitely the dominant factor or the foundation for any change in corrections. And then never lose sight of the fact that results are your goal. And we talked about that. We're not building relationships for the sake of relationships. We're building relationships to be effective. So real quick, this is going to be a quick slide. But when it comes to the 17 laws of teamwork, and you got to get this book because this comes with team development. The law of significance states one is too small of a number to achieve greatness. The law of the big picture states the goal is more important than the role. And guys, this should all make sense for you by now because we kind of covered most of this. The law of the niche. All players have a place where they add the most value. So again, it's like the area of giftedness. The law of Mount Everest. As the challenge escalates, the need for teamwork elevates. So basically, no one is successful on their own. The law of the chain. The strength of the team is impacted by its weakest link. The law of the catalyst. Winning teams have players who make things happen. The law of the compass. Vision gives team members direction and confidence. And we talked about that. I like the confidence added to that, but it's true. I need to have that vision so I need to know where we're reverse engineering from. And when we start succeeding and I see it relates to the vision, of course I build confidence because we're going in the right direction. It's more than just talk. The law of the bad apple. Rotten attitudes ruin a team. The law of accountability. Teammates must be able to count on each other when it counts. The law of the price tag. The team fails to reach its potential when it fails to pay the price. Those are the sacrifices that we must make to be successful. The law of the scoreboard. The team can make adjustments when it knows where it stands. And usually the leader should always be able to see what that scoreboard is so they can see the game in real time. The law of the bench. Great teams have great depth. The law of identity. Shared values define the team. The law of communication. Interactions fuel action. The law of the edge. The difference between two equally talented teams is leadership. Remember that. The law of high morale. When you're winning, nothing hurts. And the law of dividends. Investing in teams compound over time. And that comes from the 17 indisputable laws of teamwork. Now let's get that over here. The laws of leadership at the production level. So now this brings us back to the 21 irrefutable laws of leadership. The law of respect. People naturally follow leaders stronger than themselves. I agree to that because if I'm a high achiever, I want to be connected to someone who can help me grow, not someone who's going to limit me. So the law of respect. People naturally follow leaders stronger than themselves because they know that that person has the ability to take them somewhere and not be a lid to their growth. The law of magnetism still plays out here. Who you are is who you attract. We talked about that in the last one. The law of the picture. People do what people see. We talked about that as well. You know, you got to present a good example to let people know it's doable. And they really, the best learning is seeing it in front of you. The law of victory. Leaders find a way for the team to win. And guys, in corrections, we need wins, 100%. Wins give us credibility. It gives us momentum. And I believe as a team, once we create that momentum, we can always find a way to win. Because even if we don't get to where we need to be, we still learn from it. And that itself is a win. The law of the big mo. Momentum is a leader's best friend. We talked about that, guys. Come on, guys. Don't look to problem solve. Look to create momentum. The law of priorities. Leaders understand that activity is not necessarily accomplishment. Yeah, you may be busy, but what are you truly accomplishing? You know, that's why I also want to be wary of people that just kind of hand out tedious work with no effort to cultivate individuals in the importance of that work. You know, all because you're busy doesn't mean you're accomplishing anything. It just means you're busy. The law of sacrifice. A leader must give up to go up. And we talked about that. There's nothing easy in leadership, just like there's nothing easy even at the front line level. We will always have to make sacrifices to do what's best for the team. And the law of buy-in. People buy into you, the leader, before the vision. All right, so now let's get the beliefs that help you move up to level 4. So now we're talking about creating people into being leaders themselves. And this is key because this is where the legacy begins. You got to realize that production is not enough because one day you may not be there. And who's going to step up? Who's going to take the torch? You know, eventually one day you're going to retire. You know, and if you don't create a succession plan, there's no exponential growth on people that are willing to lead and make decisions, then it's going to fall back pretty quick to what that status quo is. And usually the status quo are facilities that complacent practices, isolation. It's an intentional effort every day to keep the facility operating where it needs to operate. People are organization's most appreciable asset. We talked about that. I agree with that 100%. You have to value people because people are going to be your resource as a leader to be productive. They're going to be your resource to even be successful. You're only successful if the people allow you to be successful. If they put you on your shoulder, if they put you on their shoulders. I know that. So just remember, appreciate the people because they are a priority in the success of the agency and your success and the team's success. Growing leaders is the most effective way to accomplish the vision. And that's what we're going to get to in level 4. It's basically people development. We want decision makers, and people development is the greatest fulfillment for a leader. And I agree, guys, that's the legacy, guys. As I get closer to retiring, I look back and it's not about any position I've attained. It's truly about, have I impacted lives? Had I made a difference? I have looked back as an officer when working with the inmates. I look back as a supervisor when working with staff. It matters when you have that chance to impact a life. And you do. I think that's the greatest gift the agency could ever give, is the ability to impact another life that could affect them their whole career. So please, when you're given that chance, take advantage of it. I mean, I did a video a while back where I had talked to someone who was kind of upset that the department wasn't doing enough to maintain or invite new recruits. And once they're given a new recruit, the supervisor just kind of belittles the choice that the person made and said, yeah, you should be out of here within 24 years. You don't want to do 24 years here. You should be out of here now. Sorry, that's what it was. You should be out of here now. You don't want to do 24 years here. And they're disgruntled, and they expect this rookie to understand that level of being disgruntled when it's their first day. And that rookie decides to leave the profession. And then, of course, that person goes, well, they left because it's the profession. No, it's you. Person looked at you, saw where they could be in 24 years, and they just didn't want to be you. So guide to growing through level 3. This is just a summary before we get to 4. Be the team member you want on your team. Translate personal productivity into leadership. Understand everyone's productivity niche. So that's the area of giftedness. Cast vision continually. That's keeping it fueled. Keep the momentum fueled. If we're succeeding, let them know. Let them know where we're at. But that's more about the momentum. Build your team, and you do that through production because they're being successful. Use momentum to solve problems. We talked about that. Discern how team members affect momentum. Again, if you got someone that's not producing, you got to make the difficult decision and do what's best for the team. Practice Pareto principle is basically 80% versus 20%. Usually 20% produce to 80%. So you got to know where your strong players are, where your catalysts are, and know how to utilize them in a way that really boosts the productivity of the team, as well as whatever the agency is requesting. And accept your role as a change agent. We talked about that because you are the facilitator of change. You are their immediate contact. So with that said, when it comes to accepting your role as a change agent, just kind of be there for them as they go through the motions. Because as I said, most of the people that you lead understand that change is needed. They just don't know what they're letting go of. So you have to help translate that. And don't neglect level 2, which is obviously building those relationships with the people you supervise. All right, so this is going to get a little quicker now because now it's kind of starting to get to the last 2 steps. But now we're talking about people development. Now we're talking about making people into future leaders. So that brings us up to level 4. People follow you because what you have done for them. That's the ultimate goal, because now you have proven to be effective because you're credible. You've done stuff for the agency. They know that you're effective. Now they're willing to say, hey, can you teach me what you know? Because I myself would like to be successful. And you seem to be someone that I would love to have mentor me because you are proving yourself to be a good leader and also be someone that can produce for the agency's needs. So to reach the upper levels of leadership, and this comes from John Maxwell's book, The 5 Levels of Leadership. To reach the upper levels of leadership, 4 and 5, that create elite organizations, leaders must transition from producers to developers. Think about that, guys. You went from producing an outcome to developing people who produce the outcome. Remember, when you get hired for your potential as a leader in corrections, it's your potential to lead people, to manage people. And part of that is developing them to be leaders themselves. You want decision makers. Basically, you want to be able to pass the torch and be confident that it's still going to stay lit. So that's a great quote. To reach upper levels of leadership that create elite organizations, leaders must transition from producers to developers. So let's talk about the upside. People development sets you apart from most leaders, and it's true. Because a lot of people don't want to put the time and investment into developing other people. There's time here. This is where you make an impact. This is where you walk next to your people. You guide them through it. You help them with the concerns they have in an effort to create a leader within themselves. And this is investment of time. This is not spending time. This is investment of time. Because at the end of the day, when you're investing time with them, you're expecting a good, positive outcome. So if I'm investing time in you, it's because I know you're worth it, because I can't get my time back. For many people, I may spend my time, but for you, I'm investing my time. And you got to know the difference, and so does your team. People development assures that growth can be sustained. And that's more on the agency level, but also on the team level. Leaders carry the torch. So I need to pass it off to somebody that's going to maintain that momentum. So 100% people development does pass the torch. And usually when it comes to people development, there's a lot of things about leadership that could be discussed when it comes to people development. But I just want to make sure that we emphasize the importance of decision makers. Leaders are decision makers, 100%. So when it comes to developing, people into being leaders, they're developing them into being decision makers. So again, this really does assure that the growth can be sustained, because it just becomes exponential now, because now I'm teaching people to be leaders themselves, and it just maintains great momentum, man. I mean, now the momentum is really going, because that's a great way to fuel the momentum, right? Is that now I'm able to step aside because I got people here that can be leaders themselves. They got the founder's mentality going. They got accountability. They got trust. They're able to take this onto the next level and beyond, further than I ever could. People development empowers others to fulfill their leadership potential or responsibilities. That's the key. That's why basically when you hand out an assignment to get done in corrections, you could tell people the what, and they got to understand the why, but they should develop the how. They should be the ones within their parameters making the decisions to make sure whatever needs to be produced is the most successful. Again, with the search team, I mean, how would you like to get this done? How would you like to search this area? How can I empower you to be confident within your decision making? And the best way also to empower them is within their areas of giftedness, because that's where they're already comfortable at. So let them start in an area where they're comfortable to make decisions, and then show support. Cultivate that. But people development empowers others to fulfill their leadership responsibility, and it truly does start in our efforts to cultivate them into taking on responsibilities that come with decision making. People development empowers the leader to lead larger. That's true too, because as I said, as I've moved up, knowing that I have people underneath me that are leaders themselves makes it easier for me to handle bigger areas of responsibility, because I got decision makers pretty much doing what they got to do within their parameters of responsibility and letting me know what's happening. So basically that empowerment carries a lot of weight, because me as a leader, I can't get to every area of responsibility. So I need people that are decision makers on the floor, and then they can go ahead and tell me what decisions were made in an effort to keep us moving forward. And people development provides great personal fulfillment. Of course it does. You're making the decision. You're involved. You're invested. You're committed. So of course you feel fulfillment, because it's you. You've done it. You've created the path for success, because you are the one behind the how of the work being done. Empowerment, making people leaders, is the best way to have people feel fulfilled by the work they do, because it gives them a level of responsibility over the work that they can't push off. All right, so let's talk about the downside of people development, because there is a downside to people development. Self-centeredness can cause leaders to neglect people's development. Guys, if you're constantly wanting to be the best, and that's all you care about, then all people do is they become a means to that end. I've seen this in some gang investigators who like to brag that they know all that knowledge, and they're afraid to share it because they're afraid that someone else can replace them. And then we wind up just hiding information that could be valuable. So again, if you're more worried about yourself and you're not really invested in people development, then the problem is you're not growing your people. You're not truly being effective. And literally, you're just more worried about being the best and then being replaced. Your job as a leader is to be replaced. So again, self-centeredness will stop you from wanting to develop people, because you're not going to want to make them better than you. And as a true leader, that's what you're supposed to be doing. You're supposed to be creating people who take your dreams or the dreams of the agency further than you ever could imagine. You kind of are the spark. Insecurity can make leaders feel threatened by people development, and that's kind of relates to the above. If I'm insecure in my position, if I'm constantly seeking to be the best, and I feel that's a title I need to hold because everybody's telling me I'm the best, and I don't want to give up that title, I'm not going to want to cultivate someone who I feel can replace me, which is the wrong way of thinking. So that's definitely a lot of insecurity, where I'm secure in my position. I'm secure in what I'm able to contribute. And for me, being able to cultivate a future leader who can go far beyond what I ever thought imaginable, I still have a piece of that. That's part of my legacy. That's part of my impact. I want them to succeed. I've invested time in them. So with that said, insecurity can make leaders feel threatened by people development because I think they're afraid that that person can replace them. And you shouldn't be thinking about that as a leader when it comes to people development. Let's see. Short-sightedness can keep leaders from seeing the need for people development. Sadly, in corrections, most of the higher-ups only see the now. Sadly, they kind of wait for things to be in a flame or an outright inferno before we start doing things, when we really should be thinking more long-term. Leadership should always be thinking more long-term. It's not about so much what we're doing today, but what are we doing for tomorrow and the next day? So when it comes to training future leaders, that is not about just today, because this is a process that doesn't happen overnight. This is about where we're going to be in 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. So again, this is not something that has an immediate impact, but will through the course of time. And you're right, people that are short-sightedness, they don't see that. All they see is what can be done now. This will take too long. Yeah, but this is where the benefit's going to be. The benefit is in the long run, not in the short-sightedness, but in the long run. It's where we could be tomorrow. So having said that, for people with people development, this isn't something that happens overnight, but the value that it will add later on and the momentum it will create will be exponential. But sadly, most of the leaders won't be there when it finally takes off and shows value. I just wish we had more consistent leadership, at least at the higher level. Lack of commitment can keep leaders from doing the hard work of people development. That's true. This is really an investment and a commitment, because you're dealing with people, you're dealing with them as a whole. So it's not an easy task. And if you're not committed to it, it becomes too challenging. And you're going to want to just step away, because you're dealing with people. You're dealing with them as a whole. Again, you can't deal with people in slices. So you're dealing with the bad and the good. I mean, that's how you're cultivating somebody. You're finding balance even through their imperfections. So with that said, it does become time consuming, but you have to be committed to the effort, because once you're committed and you have purpose and you know what's going to matter, then those challenges aren't that bad. It's just part of what has to be done. It becomes accepted. But if you're not committed, if you don't see purpose, yeah, you're going to throw in the towel, because this part is very complicated, because there's a lot of challenges when it comes to having someone meet their greatest potential, because there's just obstacles that they could even put in their own way that you have to figure out how to work around or work through. So best behaviors on level 4, and this is kind of, we're going to start reaching that pinnacle, but this right now is for people development, is recruiting and finding the best people possible, 100%. I don't know if the agencies actually can be doing that now because of the hiring out of desperation. At this point when I'm videoing this, we are understaffed nationally, and we're hiring out of desperation. And therefore the academies they're being pushed to transform people and not really cultivate them. We're looking for people that we can cultivate. So if possible, when you're looking to recruit the best people, you're looking for people that have the potential. I mean, you were a leader because someone brought you in because you had potential. Well, you're looking the same now for the people that you want to bring in and you want to develop. You're looking for a spark, a potential that you see that can help you help them. And again, transformation is tough. We're not looking to transform, we're looking to cultivate. So I need something, a little spark that says there's potential, and then I'm willing to invest my time in that potential, because the investment of time has to be an outcome, something that says that the time spent was worthwhile. Positioning, placing the right people in the right position. So we talked about area of giftedness. I truly believe, and we talked about this before, when it comes to seeing where someone's leadership potential is, put them in an area where they excel, put them in an area of giftedness, and see where they take control, where they take charge, their want to make a decision. I think if you truly want to see how good someone can be, put them in an area where they could be most effective. And then we could start from there. So yes, it is about positioning people in the right position. Modeling shows others how to lead. So you are leading by example. You're showing them behaviors that you want them to emulate. So be wary of the behaviors that you leak. Because in the end of the day, as you guys show them behaviors that showcase the type of leader that you need them to be to carry the torch that you are trying to pass off. Equipping, which is helping others to do their job well. So again, you got recruiting, positioning, modeling, and equipping. That's our job as leaders, is to equip our people to be the most effective. So when it comes to people development, are we recruiting good people? Are we positioning them in the right place? Are we modeling behavior that truly reflects our values? And are we equipping them? Are we giving them the tools that they need to be essential? And developing is teaching them to do life well. I mean, being a leader is not so much just in the workplace. It's everywhere. It's just it's a way that you define your decision making, your lifestyle. You're not just a leader at the workplace and then it turns off. It's a lifestyle. It's embedded in you. You know, it's something that I've learned so many lessons at the job that I could apply here at my home life, that I could translate to my children so they can understand what may be needed of them as they move up, especially when it comes to taking responsibility, having integrity, the things that matter in this profession. Empowering, enable people to see. We talked about that. You know, you got to empower your people to make decisions. Let them handle the how and let them understand what it feels like to make a decision and have full responsibility and ownership for the success or the failure of that decision. And measuring, evaluating those whom you develop to maximize their efforts. Again, you're developing people differently because each person is not the same. So you got to make sure that you meet the needs of that person and it's at their level. Because again, you want them to reach their greatest potential. And that requires you knowing them and meeting their needs where it has to be met. You're going to them. The laws of leadership at the people developmental level. We have the law of the process, which we talked about that before. Again, this is people development level. So we're kind of going back to becoming a leader. And that's really, it develops daily, not in a day. So you can't expect your people to be leaders in one day. It's a process, challenges. It takes a while. And you have to be in it for the long haul. That's where the commitment comes in, because it's going to be back and forth. The law of addition, leaders add value by serving others. So think about this, guys. And again, just kind of reiterate what was said before. We went over this law before, but the more leaders you add, the more that they add to the agency in the value and really on good decision-making abilities. That's the key for this. The law of the inner circle. A leader's potential is determined by those closest to him. So think about this for me. If I surround myself by other leaders who are really lifting up the agency, then I get lifted up with it. So it's definitely worth it in the long run, even if I did have a selfish motive, which I don't, but even if I did, developing leaders will only move me up in my leadership abilities. It makes me more effective. And again, when I mean effective in my mind, effective for my team, effective for the agency and my efforts to produce. The law of empowerment, only secure leaders give power to others. And that's true. We don't want micromanaged leaders. We want people that are secure in their positions, that delegate power, not task. So I'm going to delegate you the power to get the job done. And I hope you succeed in it because I want you to be the best. So again, empowerment, delegating empowerment, not delegating task. The law of explosive growth. This definitely comes with leader development. To add growth, lead followers, to multiply. The law of explosive growth. To add growth, lead followers. To multiply, lead leaders. And that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to develop a team that is full of leaders, and that now you lead leaders who basically are making leaders themselves. So think about that. You're just getting, it's exponential growth. You develop leaders to develop leaders to develop leaders to develop leaders. It's a beautiful picture. It's the part of leadership that really not many people talk about. At the end of the day, most of the leadership books talks about being productive. None of them really talk about people development into leaders themselves and then creating that legacy of leadership, building leadership. or leaders building leaders. The law of buy-in, people buy into the leader, then the vision. We talked about that, right? I mean, I got to present a vision that's believable. I got to commit to actions that relate to that vision. And then you yourself will buy into me first before you buy into any vision that needs to be created. Now let's talk about the beliefs that best help you move to level 5. Now this is the soon to be the unreachable level. Not everybody reaches level 5, but let's just go over it. The highest goal of leadership is to develop leaders, not gain followers or do work. To develop leaders, you must create a leadership culture. That's the key. You know, you want to create a culture that embraces decision-making, empowerment, care, values, shared partnerships, a leadership culture that truly gives people a level of responsibility over the choices that they're made in their efforts to be effective in what is required by the facility or the agency. Developing leaders is a life commitment, not a job commitment. So basically, this is something that truly goes outside of work, because I know for a fact that when I started mentoring a few people to be leaders themselves, I took a lot of phone calls outside of my work hours. It does bleed into your personal time. But again, when you're developing someone to be a leader, it's not just within the parameters of the job. Leadership applies everywhere. It's leadership in life. So you can't expect just for those questions to come during work hours, especially if you are dealing with people who truly embrace the want to be a leader, because they're going to take on more challenges and more opportunities, which means they're going to have more questions. Now we're going to guide through to growing through level 4. Be willing to keep growing yourself. Of course, can't grow others if you're not growing yourself. Decide that people are worth the effort. That's where the commitment comes in. Work through your insecurities. We talked about that. Recruit the best people you can develop if possible. Create a personal development process. Never work alone. Blend the soft and hard sides of development. Because that's true. That's kind of like the care and candor of it all. You know, showing people you care, but then also holding them responsible, which is still showing them that you care. Believe it or not, accountability is the highest level of showing someone you care, because you're telling them that they can do the job, that they have the potential to do the job. So it's not like you don't think they can do the job, but most people avoid that because they don't want the conflict. And that really tends to be a selfish motive and not what leaders would do. Take responsibility for energizing others, be that encourager, and remain approachable as a leader, role model, and coach. And that's key. I talked about being approachable. All right, let's get to this last level, level 5, the pinnacle. This is the Gandhi of leadership, the Mother Teresa's. Maybe the Ganges of Tear Talks. Maybe. We'll see. But this is about the pinnacle. It's about respect. It's about reputation. People follow you because of who you are and what you represent. Let's go to the upside of pinnacle. Pinnacle leadership creates a level 5 organization. So think about this, guys. You're at that level of 5. You're up at the top. And you're creating leaders who are creating leaders who are creating leaders who are creating leaders. These are decision makers. So imagine working in a facility where everyone is a decision maker and you're at the top and you made this happen. You took the time to become a great leader yourself. You learned the ins and outs, and then you took that time to be committed and develop leaders who are now developing other leaders, and the momentum is just flowing like crazy in such a positive way. I mean, that's a really good working facility. Pinnacle leadership creates a legacy within the organization. Of course, you're leaving something behind. I can leave now because the torch is going into the hands of other leaders who are willing to pick it up and run it off. And that's what my goal is at the end of my career, is I want to create a legacy to be remembered. That's all I want. Did I do something that had value? And when you are developing people to be leaders themselves, you are creating a legacy in which the torch can be passed down in an effort to keep things moving in the right direction. Because the last thing you want is for you to leave and everything falls. You don't want that. That's not proving your worth. Trust me. Pinnacle leadership provides an extended platform for leading. And yes, it gives everybody a chance to step up and take onus within their role, to take responsibility within their role. And I think also to feel involved and invested in the outcomes. I used to hate it when decisions were made and everybody expects us to be happy. And it's like, I wasn't even part of that. So I'm not feeling it like I should. But now when you give people the chance to make decisions within the how of what's being done, they feel invested, fulfilled, a level of ownership that comes when you are actively involved. And that comes when you yourself also are not insecure and you allow for that involvement to exist. The downside of pinnacle, being on the pinnacle can make you think you've arrived. And by the way, I felt that when I was at a conference, I was like, holy crap. And I was like, I'm there, but I'm not. Even though I may have been recognized in one room, I wasn't recognized in the next, or I wasn't recognized by everyone. So you can't live off that. You got to constantly fight for that recognition. I mean, you're not here to impress, you're here to make an impact. And impact comes when you're fighting to build those relationships and connect with those people. So you're right. You could feel it as if you've arrived, but at the end of the day, you haven't, because it doesn't stop. You got to still keep moving forward. There's no end game here. As Simon Sinek would say, it's an infinite game. Being on the pinnacle can lead you to believe your own press. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm saying here now. And being on the pinnacle can make you lose focus. I agree with that too, by the way. I've seen people that walk in, they get that automatic respect, and then it's really about them. They forget even why they're in it for, why they're doing it for. They're doing it for the people, but because now they're, getting this recognition from the highest levels, all of a sudden their ego increases and they lose focus of what it's always been. It's never been about you. It's been about the people you oversee, the people you supervise. So when you do reach that pinnacle level and people give you that respect and that reputation, you have to remember that it was never about you. Hey, thanks. This is great. I'm glad you are, giving me this respect, but I want you to know it's about them. And that success comes not from me being here, but from them continuing to maintain the momentum we need to create leaders. Best behaviors on level 5. Make room for others at the top. Oh, yes. Share the space. That phrase, it's lonely at the top, well, you're doing it wrong. Make space. Bring people up. Even if you have to walk back down, do what you can to bring people up to you. Because in the end, leadership is not about being lonely at the top. It's about bringing people with you. If you're lonely at the top, you're doing it wrong. Continually mentor potential level 5 leaders. I do that all the time. Anytime I have a chance to create an impact or share some advice, I make sure I do it with the people I know that's going to do something with it, because it's my time as well. And as I said, I'm investing time in somebody. So my return is, are you going to apply what I'm saying so you can be the most effective in whatever potential that you want to reach, because I can't get my time back. So is this going to be a discussion in which we're going to try to solve a matter, or are we just gossiping or venting? Create an inner circle that will keep you grounded. And this is true too. Keep you humble, because when you get to that level 5, I mean, there's a lot there that you may want to say, yeah, I'm the shit, I'm the man, or I'm the woman. But you need to keep yourself grounded, because in the end, you always are doing it for the people you oversee, the people you supervise. Do things for the organization that only level 5 leaders can do, and that really is developing leaders to be leaders. Use your reputation to encourage people to step up and take the challenge, embrace the opportunity. Because now that people are willing to listen to you, you can use your voice for something good. You can develop people's want to develop themselves, which will help the leaders develop them. Plan for your succession. I mean, that's pretty much what we're doing, passing the torch off. Leave a positive legacy, which is my goal now as I get closer to retiring. And the laws of leadership at the pinnacle level is the law of respect. People naturally follow leaders stronger than themselves. The law of intuition. Leaders evaluate everything with a leadership bias. That should be with. But with the leadership bias is important, because when I look at situations right now, it's like it's second nature when I make a decision. So it's good to know that I've developed in such a way where some of the decisions I make automatically lean towards that without me intentionally trying, especially if I need to solve something in the moment. Later on, I could always reevaluate. Oh, that was a good decision. But again, it's something I practice every day, so it becomes like my automatic go-to. And that's something I've conditioned myself to, which is intentional effort, daily, minute by minute. The law of timing, when to lead is as important as what to do and where to go. Law of legacy, a leader's lasting value is measured by succession. I wish more people would understand that. It's not about being the best. It's about eventually passing it off. And the law of explosive growth, to add growth, lead followers, to multiply, lead leaders. Help others move up to level 4 and 5. Identify and create the crucial leadership lessons they must learn. And in corrections, I think as a leader, we should be doing that every day. I mean, especially if there's an event that happens, a code, we could always reach out after them, reach out after the event and talk to them about their decision making. And again, always to keep them motivated to make decisions. You know, we have to be very careful when you correct someone who's trying to develop into a leader, because we have to make sure in our efforts to correct them, we keep them motivated. Look for unexpected crucible moments they can learn from. That usually, believe it or not, it comes from making mistakes. I mean, yes, success, but you don't want to get caught in your past successes, because sometimes what works in one moment won't always work forever. But the crucible moments could be failures. And as leaders, we should take an opportunity to address that in a constructive manner, especially if the intent was good. It was just maybe just a bad decision, but the intent was good. So a crucible moment is, if there's a failure, don't look to write them up right away. See why they made that decision, and let's make it a teachable moment if possible. Use your own crucible moments as guidelines to teach others. I do. I'm vulnerable with my failures. People know I'm not perfect. I share my failures all the time, and I share what I've learned from those failures. So I think that's 100% will help you build a relationship with the people you want to develop, and let them know that it's okay to make mistakes. And hopefully that will motivate them to continue with making decisions, and expose them to other people and organizations that will impact them. I try to do that. I try to expose them to books, training, seminars, just kind of like the roads that I've been on that I find are worthwhile. And, you know, I connect them to people that come on my show, connect them to social media sites that I feel are helpful, like my boy Russ Hamilton's Facebook page, Keepers of Chaos, my YouTube channel, other people's YouTube channels. And remember, guys, this is your guide to being your best. Remain humble and teachable, even at level 5. Maintain your core focus. Never lose value that it's about the people. Create the right inner circle to keep you grounded. Again, keep you humble, because you got a lot of people believing in the hype. You may believe in it too. And you got to be wary that you don't do that in a way that sacrifices what's really important and why you're doing it. Do what only you can do. Create a supercharged leadership development environment. It's all about culture. Create room at the top. You know, bring room to bring people up. Develop your top leaders. Plan your succession. Plan your legacy. And use your leadership success as a platform for something greater. That's the key. Now go. Journey upwards. Journey together. And unlock your greatest potential. I hope that you guys were able to enjoy this lesson. Again, may look like it comes from one book, but it did really come from multiple books, and my want to chase my learning to be the best that I can be. So again, thank you for taking the time listening to this leadership lesson. I hope it applies. Share it. Share it with your people. I'm going to put it out on YouTube. It's there to be shared, but hopefully this fills the gap. It answers some of your questions when you're entering the leadership position, what's expected of you. So you know going in that this is what I'm able to do, because it really is about taking the responsibility of others and developing them to be leaders themselves. So good luck. Good luck on your journey. Good luck on your supervisory role, and more training to come. Be safe, guys. Take care, and God bless.